This video continues with Chapter 21 Small Arc Reactor Across the Infinite, a Kryptonian's Odyssey. Chapter 21 Small Arc Reactor. Then Lucifer realized that Sky might have been physically blocked. Otherwise, it would not be so outrageous that he could not track it. It can be said that Lucifer's hacking skills are at least the second in the world, and Sky is the first in the world. So he quickly tried to use his world's top-of-the-line computer, worth tens of millions of dollars, to invade Tony Stark's home, mainly to attack Jarvis, in order to obtain its core data and source code. Jarvis's counterattack was very fast and sharp, but Lucifer, who had faced Sky, said that these technical means were mediocre. Tony Stark got drunk and had with several young models and fell asleep, so that Jarvis's alarm kept ringing and could not wake him up. In the end, Lucifer broke through all the defenses of Jarvis in just 10 minutes, obtained the core data and source code, and deleted the traces of his invasion. Got it. Lucifer was very satisfied, and then his express delivery arrived. Ivan Vanke and Anton Vanke, father and son, were packed and shipped. After all, they are the masters of small arc reactor technology. Even if it is a backward palladium-cold nuclear fusion reactor, they can only use this before Lucifer gets the molecular structure and atomic model of the new element. But there is no need to rush. Lucifer has been asking about the location of the map model. Once he knows where the map model is, he can get the new element by going there. Who are you? Ivan Vanko and Anton Vanko, father and son, looked at Lucifer opposite with great excitement. Don't be nervous. I asked you to come here because I heard something. Lucifer knocked on the table with a gold lighter. He doesn't smoke, but it doesn't prevent him from using a lighter to show off his style. Ivan Vanko and Anton Vanko didn't continue talking. They knew very well that the person who could kidnap them across the ocean must be extraordinary. Maybe it was the guy from the Stark family who wanted to silence him. Anton Vanke thought so in his heart. After all, the only people he could think of who were related to them and had such strength were the bastards of the Stark family. I heard that you once worked with Howard Stark on an energy project, and then he slandered you for stealing his achievements and drove you out of the United States. Lucifer said meaningfully. That's right. Anton Vanke said immediately. His expression was serious and he didn't look like he was lying, but it didn't matter. Lucifer only wanted their technology and had no interest in the truth of the year. I want that energy technology. Name a price. Lucifer said calmly. What? Anton Vanke was startled, and so was Ivan Vanke. They felt that the development of things seemed a little unexpected. It's not a safe thing to entrust the hope of revenge to others. It's better to do it yourself with money. Anyway, this world is a world of rich people. Only with money can you have power, right? Lucifer said. Now the father and son finally understood what Lucifer wanted to do. He wanted their technology, gave them money, and encouraged them to take revenge. Even researchers are not so easy to fool. They just look stupid, but in fact, it is because their brains are all focused on other things and don't care about these trivial matters. Otherwise, it may not be the turn of ordinary people to govern. Can these geniuses really not govern better than ordinary people? Of course not. Don't worry, I am a very credible person and will not kill people to silence them. I am a qualified businessman. As long as you give me technology, I will pay, and then we will be even. Then you can go wherever you want. Lucifer said nonchalantly. By doing this, he also gave Ivan Vanko and Anton Vanko starting funds and funding. The original plot of Hammer Industries' Mechanical Soldiers can only be said to be shoddy. Of course, it can also be said that Ivan Vanko used all the good materials on his armor, but this is not important. Lucifer strengthened Ivan Vanko, and maybe he could get a good monster in the future. Ivan Vanko and Anton Vanko were doubtful and they whispered to each other in Russian. Actually, you don't have a choice now, right? Either believe me or you'll be solved before you start your revenge. Lucifer interrupted their private communication. You want the technology of a small arc reactor, no problem, we'll give it to you, but you have to give us $10 billion. Ivan Vanko said to Lucifer. 10 billion is not a small amount. Lucifer said calmly. But that technology is worth the price. Ivan Vanko said coldly. Although the two of them were down and out, they were both high-level intellectuals that 99% of the people in the world couldn't compare to. How could they not know the value of their technology? Okay, deal, but you only have one chance. Once I find out it's fake or incomplete, I'll immediately send you to Siberia to dig potatoes, and then you'll never be able to take revenge. Lucifer nodded. Ivan Vanko and Anton Vanko did not say anything, but planned to start working now. Fortunately, Lucifer had already prepared a laboratory for them and also called all the scientific researchers. He himself watched with great interest. With all the equipment complete and beyond imagination, Ivan Vanko and Anton Vanko felt like they were enjoying themselves. Then they spent 5 days to successfully manufacture the first small arc reactor. That is the most crude version. The Palladium plug-in version invented by Tony Stark was already a generation ahead. The one made by the Vanks could only be considered slightly more powerful than the one Tony Stark smashed in the cave, but it was far inferior to the second small arc reactor made by Tony Stark after he came back. If Lucifer hadn't watched the whole process, he would have thought that the two fathers and sons were playing a trick on him. You smashed out such a small arc reactor that was only slightly better than the cave version in the world's most advanced laboratory. Well, it was Lucifer's fault. He should have thought that Tony Stark had been updating and improving after inheriting Howard's research. After Anton Vanko was expelled, he was abandoned by the Russians because of his reputation. Naturally, he had no capital to continue researching this technology, and falling behind was inevitable. Although Lucifer wanted to complain about how heartless Mousy was, he was a scientific researcher who had worked with Howard, and he was just allowed to starve to death or freeze to death in his later years. What a waste of natural resources. Chapter 22 Super Weapon. Under the nervous eyes of Ivan Vank and Anton Vank, Lucifer did not break his promise and gave them a Swiss bank bearer account worth $10 billion, which can be accessed with a password. You have to pay attention to the radiation from this thing. Ivan Vanko looked at Lucifer and said, Thanks for the advice. I thought you wouldn't say it. Lucifer said with a smile. You know, Ivan Vank was a little surprised. I'm not just from a good background. I'm no worse than you in this area of knowledge. What I lack is just the ideas to succeed. Lucifer shrugged. Ivan Vank was a little unbelievable. After all, Lucifer really looked like the kind of playboy who was ignorant and unskilled. The difference was that he would not kill people and silence them. Looking at the two father and son leaving, Lucifer could only wish them good luck. If they could really defeat Tony Stark with $10 billion, then Lucifer would feel that the $10 billion was well spent. Okay, now let's start my DIY. Lucifer's artificial intelligence has been created, and Lucifer calls it the Black Emperor, taken from the Black King in chess. According to Lucifer's instructions, the Black Emperor has produced the first steel suit, restoring the style of Iron Man's standard Mark Roman II, except that Lucifer uses an all-black paint job. Super weapon. That's how Lucifer named the iron suit, and it felt right. Although I don't know how the war machine in the original plot reserves so much ammunition. After all, it has shot so many robots, and the Gatling gun on its back can continue to fire bullets. Are you carrying tens of thousands of rounds of ammunition? However, the weapon Lucifer prepared for his super weapon was very simple, imitating the most lethal weapon of the Predator, the plasma shoulder cannon. The power of a plasma cannonball is equivalent to the energy intensity of the anti-tank and anti-armor missile Hellfire missile on the Apache helicopter gunship. It is already outrageous for a single soldier. You must also pay attention to whether it will be affected to myself. All that's left is for Lucifer to find people from America's Ministry of Defense. Because his background seems unfathomable and he seems to have deep connections with the three major keyballs, people from the Ministry of Defense will soon follow him. Meet Sifa. Originally, they just thought Lucifer would come up with some advanced firearms and even more outrageous, unexpected missiles, drones, and other technologies. But as soon as Lucifer came up, he took them to see how the super weapon was tested against various weapons and various environments, and then their minds went crazy. This armor combines many concepts that I imagined, so when it was made, it also integrated many of the most advanced technologies in our company, such as high-tech materials science, new energy technology, optical technology, and human body modification technology, etc. No one could hear Lucifer's words clearly. They were all shocked at the moment. This thing could actually fly, launch energy attacks, and ignore the protection of automatic rifle attacks. The whole thing was full of a sense of grandeur. Its aiming status will be reflected in the helmet's visual processor. At this time, the combatant can choose to fire according to their own will, or they can let the weapon fire automatically. That's enough, Mr. Lucifer. I want to know the price of this weapon. The Ministry of National Defense sent a lieutenant general. He originally thought that he was here to accompany Lucifer to vent his imagination, but he never expected that this guy was really a genius. However, Lucifer showed a troubled expression. Because its manufacturing process is very cumbersome and the cost is quite high, it is difficult to achieve mass production. It is difficult for us to make profits by selling it as a commodity. No need to worry, Mr. Lucifer. I think the American government can still afford the price. The Lieutenant General of the Ministry of National Defense said confidently, really. This super weapon is worth at least $10 billion US. Can the Ministry of National Defense really afford it? Lucifer questioned, and the Lieutenant General of the Ministry of Defense immediately coughed violently. Lucifer, sir, are you kidding me? The Lieutenant General of the Ministry of National Defense said that if this was Lucifer expressing humor, it would definitely be the coldest humorous joke he had ever heard. Of course not. I'm quoting the price very seriously. Do you think it's expensive? Then I'll let you understand why it's so expensive. Lucifer said to him coldly as if he was stimulated. Then there are various world-first and world-leading technologies that are displayed one by one with pictures showing that the whole world is researching them. But Lucifer has already researched them and combined these advanced technologies into a super weapon. It is a veritable super weapon. No weapon can compare with it, except that it is a little too expensive. The Lieutenant General of the Ministry of National Defense was obviously convinced, with a hesitant and troubled expression on his face. What's more, Europe and Asia have also expressed interest. Lucifer then dropped a bombshell. What? Lieutenant General Egelius's eyes widened. Which one could it be, Europe or Asia? Isn't it America's biggest enemy on Blue Star? These damn big plutocrats don't care about America's interests at all. If Lucifer really sells super weapons to Asia and Europe, America will be restricted and oppressed in this regard. This is absolutely unacceptable. As for whether Lucifer dares to sell it, isn't this nonsense? With his background, what's the problem with selling it? Money is power. I will contact Mr. President immediately. Please don't worry, Mr. Lucifer. America is definitely the most generous customer. Lieutenant General Egelius said immediately, and he also knew that he couldn't handle this matter, so he contacted his superiors directly. After hearing this, the superiors were very confused. They never expected to encounter such an unimaginable development. How could reality suddenly become so magical? No, science fiction? But they were decisive enough and quickly placed an order and bought one. This is not surprising. Even if Lieutenant General Egelius promised solemnly, they had to get a sample for testing first, and by the way, see if they could crack the technology on it. It feels that the technologies on this super weapon are very valuable and leading the world. Lucifer naturally has his own insurance measures. The biggest difference between his super weapon and Tony Stark's Iron Man suit is that the super weapon has 3 small arc reactors, one to maintain the energy consumption of flight, one to maintain the energy consumption of plasma shoulder cannon, and one to maintain the energy consumption of various functions of the super weapon. This makes the super weapon's continuous combat time much longer than the Iron Man suit. Of course, when changing small arc reactors, more can be exchanged, which is where the real money is made. Chapter 23 G-Virus. It's like everyone who sells arms knows that the real value is not the guns, but the bullets. Have you ever seen anyone who needs to buy ammunition after buying a gun? This is where super weapons make money. Of course, Lucifer's behavior of selling steel armor is naturally not for making money. It's not easy to make money, so before America's order is delivered, Lucifer has already contacted Asia and Europe. There are also people who are stupid and rich, and have passed the door of the permanent members of the Security Council 3 times without entering a certain country. These countries certainly have no shortage of money to buy super weapons, and they are also very interested in super weapons. The country in Asia wants to buy them back and copy them. Europe is very generous. Unlike America and Asia, they only want to buy 1, and the Russians in Europe want 2. The Indians, who are stupid and rich and come quickly, want 10. Lucifer is spreading super weapons to stimulate a new round of military competition. It is no exaggeration to say that super weapons, a new concept of strategic weapons, have a very strong restraint on most current weapons. From the perspective of the Air Force alone, it can fly as fast as the fastest fighter, but it is more flexible than it, and because of the magical shock absorption system, the super weapon user can make various high-intensity maneuvers, plus the plasma shoulder gun turret on the shoulder that can turn 360 degrees to aim. It is not a problem for a super weapon to destroy a fighter squadron. It is also deadly to ground forces. The speed of the super weapon can reach 300 kilometers per hour. At the same time, because it is a power armor, the super weapon is very strong. It may be a bit difficult to lift a tank, but it is no problem to lift an infantry fighting vehicle. Now, because it is just a rough concept, countries are not very clear. When they put super weapons into military operations, they will soon realize the strategic significance and value of super weapons. Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau. In the headquarters building, a bald black man wearing an eye mask and a fierce look hidden in the dark is checking the latest intelligence. He is the famous director of the Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau, Nick Fury. Super weapon? Although the cooperation between the American military and the Umbrella Corporation is very secretive, there are also agents lurking in the Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau within the military, not to mention that Lucifer's Umbrella Corporation has no intention of hiding it. So the information was obtained smoothly. What's more fortunate is that this agent is not a Hydra, so Nick Fury was able to get the information, otherwise he should be kept in the dark, and then the Hydra people would contact the Umbrella Corporation to buy super weapons. After reading the performance evaluation and various data about the super weapon, Nick Fury couldn't sit still. This is a war weapon that is beyond the times. Umbrella Corporation? Why haven't I heard of any information about this company before? No matter what, this company that can invent and manufacture super weapons must not be ignored. But he soon found out why he hadn't heard of it before. Because this Umbrella Corporation was only established recently. As for the background, the 3 major keyballs and the president of the Umbrella Corporation seem to have an unclear relationship. This is a big shot. Even if the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency is not afraid, there is no reason to take the initiative to provoke him, unless he does something that harms the world. However, the investigation of Lucifer has not found anything, and his past experience is completely blank. This shows that the other party is also well connected, of course. It is also possible that the people behind him are well connected. Troublesome guy. Nick Fury frowned. What Lucifer can think of, Nick Fury naturally can't fail to think of. This kind of unimaginable weapon will definitely trigger a new round of military competition. However, for the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency, it seems to be a good thing because in this way, international disputes and conflicts may not be so serious and frequent, and everyone is busy paying money to eliminate armaments. But Nick Fury will not let Lucifer and Umbrella Corporation go so easily, so he plans to monitor Umbrella Corporation and Lucifer. And Lucifer, he is studying a dangerous thing, Tyran Cell. The super dangerous species Tyran has retained its terrifying evolutionary and adaptability in the Marvel world. In Lucifer's view, it may be directly regarded as the G virus. The difference is that the evolution and adaptation of Tyran cells can be controlled, while the mutation of G is completely uncontrollable. What Lucifer has to do is to make the erosion ability of Tyran cells stronger, so that it can erode normal human cells at a very fast speed, and eventually become the biochemical monster that Lucifer wants. Of course, Lucifer will use very humane clones for experimental subjects. Normally, being eroded by Tyran cells will turn into a living Tyran, but it can still maintain its own sanity, which means that Tyran cells will not kill the host's brain cells and thinking ability. Otherwise, Tatsumi should have lost his mind like a beast. This is very good in Lucifer's view, but turning into a dragon does not meet his requirements, so some mechanisms and abilities of Tyran cells must be technically castrated. If it is controlled and influenced from the microscopic field, there is no problem, and it is also very easy. After all, no matter how powerful it is, it cannot change the problem of cells itself. And the genes of clones are also easy to say, just extract from a retired soldier. Umbrella Corporation has now recruited many retired soldiers. Retired soldiers, especially retired soldiers from America, basically don't know what to do after retirement, but they have no guarantee of retirement. A group of people who only know how to kill people when they retire, they don't know what to do at all. They only have experience in killing people, so it is easy for retired soldiers to rob banks and other things to happen. However, now because of the Umbrella Corporation, these retired soldiers have a way out. Lucifer attaches great importance to their experience. Although everyone knows the quality of American soldiers, they have experienced countless actual combat. And anyway, they are just clone experiments, so who cares about them? A clone was placed on the experimental table, and the mechanical arm next to it pushed the cells in a syringe into the clone's body. Erosion begins. The Black Emperor made a cold report. 1%, 10%, 50% visible changes appeared on the clone. Chapter 24 Biological Weapons. Lucifer watched the clone undergo drastic changes in a very short period of time. The influence of manipulation at the cellular level made the clone resistant to high temperatures and corrosion. Its skin was as tough as titanium alloy, and its muscles expanded several times. In the end, it turned into a head that was more than 2 meters tall. The muscles in its body were so strong that it seemed to explode. The sharp claws on its hands protruded from the flesh, as sharp and slender as blades. There is a buffering and shock-absorbing layer inside the muscles, which can effectively resist impact. There is also an insect-like exoskeleton in the flesh. The researchers quickly analyzed and studied the monster. Because of the memory of the clone, the monster was very obedient. Hunter, its name is Hunter. Lucifer was originally going to be called Tyrant, but after thinking about it carefully, I felt that the name Hunter was more suitable for this monster. According to tests, its skin is very strong. Even a 12.7 caliber automatic rifle cannot break through the defense. Rocket launchers and other individual anti-tank weapons only break through the skin and flesh, but cannot shake the exoskeleton carapace in the flesh. The Hunter itself inherited Tyran's unreasonable material non-conservation regeneration ability. As long as it is not damaged to the core, it is equivalent to immortality. It has a high degree of intelligence and can understand commands, and the super vitality of Tyrant cells itself makes up for the problem that the mature clone only has a lifespan of a few years, which means it has a long standby time and does not require maintenance. The strength is also amazing, enough to lift hundreds of meters of heavy objects, and the body's ability to withstand pressure is also very strong, especially the blade-like claws on both hands, which are very similar to the male protagonist in the original Murderer, Alex Mercer. In its claw form, it can easily split titanium alloys. Combined with the hunter's own terrifying strength, it can probably split even tanks. Boss, it's amazing, we have created such a powerful biological weapon. The scientific researcher was originally worried about the situation in the movie where the experimental subjects lost control and went on a killing spree. Even though he, as a scientific researcher, was well aware of the various loopholes in the security measures, he couldn't resist that kind of imagination. It turned out that such a terrifying monster as the hunter can actually be affected and controlled by the memory implanted during the clone period. It can also understand commands. It can even do simple math problems and speak, but its language ability is too weak. This kind of controllable biological weapon will definitely sell like crazy. Lucifer is very calm. The hunter is actually a product that has been castrated and has its abilities severely reduced. There is nothing to be happy about. The intact Tyrant cells may be able to give birth to a doomsday in the Marvel world. Cells like this that have been sliced from the microscopic realm, even if they are obtained by others, will lose the ability to corrode infection and will not cause a second infection. Otherwise, the Marvel Universe may stage a Resident Evil Tyrant version. Keep making it. Lucifer has no intention of openly selling hunters. The public may not be able to accept biological weapons with this style of painting. Unlike super weapons, hunters, or in other words, many people have a subconscious fear of biological weapons. Super weapons are enough, and biological weapons like hunters are only suitable for secret transactions. Wasn't the original Umbrella Company secretly trading biochemical weapons? This led to so many biochemical terrorist attacks in the Resident Evil universe, and people there were already used to it. Big countries disdain the use of biological and chemical weapons. Only small countries will desperately use biological and chemical weapons because they are cheap. This is because the positioning of Umbrella's biological and chemical weapons is very awkward. Even the Tyrant, which looks very powerful, is only sold for about the same price as an infantry fighting vehicle, and it follows the path of small profits but quick turnover. As for who the hunter should be sold to, Lucifer already has a target. No matter who he gives it to, he will not be rejected. The beard in the Middle East, Persia, the country of Korea and Japan, Cuba, if the hunter is sold to them, they can cause trouble. Bigger news is coming, and umbrella companies will also gain immeasurable resources. If he sells hunters to any country, he will become a super arms dealer surpassing Tony Stark, specializing in biological and chemical weapons. The funds obtained may account for more than 30% of a country's total military expenditures. Even those countries will allocate special funds to fund their continued research. Even if biological weapons are not used openly for the sake of public opinion during military operations, whether I have used biological weapons, as long as it is not disclosed, who can know? This will be a new arms race. After seeing the strength of these hunters, all countries will rush to buy them, and the dark clouds of the Cold War will once again hang over the world. And the biggest winner in this competition will be the umbrella company that has mastered the hunter manufacturing technology. As long as a country uses hunters on a large scale, its neighboring countries and competing countries will also use it, and its neighboring countries and competing countries will also use it. Under this chain reaction, the whole country will soon use it. The world will be involved. But don't worry, because Lucifer's eyes are never on Earth. There are too few monsters on Earth, but there is an entire Kree Empire and an entire Skrull Empire in the universe. There is also the Naruto waiting for him. So Lucifer plans to first improve the status of the Umbrella Company on Earth. and then develop the power of the Umbrella Company, and then enter the universe. As for why he, a Kryptonian, doesn't go to the universe by himself, nonsense. The universe is so big, relying on himself. I don't know how many years it will take to fly out of the solar system, not to mention going to the universe to fight monsters. Even the universe overlords of the level of Thanos and King Frieza have to develop a lot of subordinates and forces, and Lucifer is naturally no exception. Compared with super weapons, the price of hunters is very cheap. Lucifer asked for $100 million each. Anyway, the cost is very low. The clone machine produces clones, and hundreds or thousands can be produced at one time. Without considering the survival time of the clones, Lucifer can directly ripen them and then implant memories. Then Lucifer met with the Afghan terrorist leader, where the situation is very tense. Hundreds of Umbrella Company mercenaries were fully armed to guard Lucifer, but Lucifer felt that there was no need to be so nervous, because there was a hunter for demonstration next to him. Then a man in a white Arabian robe appeared with his men. Because of their sensitive identities, they would not meet in America itself, but somewhere like the America Pier. Chapter 25, Hunter Attacks. The buyer of the transaction was Ben Hass from the Middle East. You can tell from his attire that he is very rich. My friend, the Lord will bless you. Ben Hass hugged Lucifer as soon as he came up. The mercenary next to him just wanted to stop him, but was stopped by Lucifer shaking his head. My friend, welcome to America, but I think you don't like it here, so let's get straight to the point. This is the weapon I want to sell you, the biological weapon, the hunter. It is as obedient as a dog. Lucifer did not need a translator, and the communication with Ben Hass was unimpeded. Ben Hass then looked at the hunter introduced by Lucifer, and then he widened his eyes. After all, the hunter's unimaginable existence is still very shocking, but he couldn't resist the next instructions given by Lucifer, such as reaching out, squatting, and so on, just like training a dog. But the hunter is not a dog. It looks very visually impactful, and Ben Hass couldn't help but approach the hunter. If he had this hunter, he might be able to drive away the hateful U.S. military and break the control of the 10 Rings over Afghanistan. How much? Ben Hass found that the hunter ignored him when he approached. It seemed that it was not as scary as it looked. $100 million ahead. It has the combat power to destroy an armored formation. The way to control it is to let it remember your voice, and then others can't control it. It will only obey your orders. Lucifer said that this hunter is a new hunter. It has most of the most commonly used languages in the world, so it can understand most commands. I want 100. Ben Hass said immediately. Really don't take money as mun. Lucifer nodded with satisfaction. 100. Maybe the U.S. military in Afghanistan will be uprooted by him. However, Afghanistan is not only the enemy of the U.S. military, but also the 10 Rings. Of course, the 10 Rings in this Marvel universe are probably not as powerful as in the comics. Happy cooperation. Lucifer delivered the goods readily, and Ben Hass quickly deposited the money into an account, and then Lucifer left. Ben Hass is obviously not a very patient person. After getting these biological weapon hunters, he tried them and was shocked by the hunters' combat power. So he was ecstatic and began to plan to attack the U.S. troops in Afghanistan. Commander of the U.S. troops in Afghanistan, Lieutenant General John Scott. Scott graduated from the U.S. Army Officers Academy, Lieutenant General of the Army, served as the commander of the 82nd Airborne Division, the commander of the NATO Ground Forces, and has rich connections in the military and political circles. The entire U.S. military force in Afghanistan includes the 2nd Battalion of the 160th Aviation Combat Regiment, the 87th Infantry Regiment of the 1st Brigade of the 10th Mountain Division, the 187th Infantry Regiment of the 3rd Brigade of the 101st Airborne Division, etc. This military force alone is enough to daunt anyone. The situation in Afghanistan is quite complicated. The relationship between the U.S. troops in Afghanistan and the 10 Rings gang is actually quite ambiguous. The two sides have a common enemy and often cooperate to jointly attack the Taliban. The U.S. military even sends personnel to train the armed personnel of the Ten Rings gang. Late at night, at a U.S. military base, there were more than 500 fully armed American soldiers stationed here, as well as various military Hummers and infantry fighting vehicles. Ben has appeared here with his men and 5 hunters. Attack, destroy them all, and leave no one behind. Ben has gave orders to the hunters, and the 5 hunters began to run wildly towards the U.S. military base. They ran very fast, even up to about 300 kilometers per hour, but they were somewhat affected by the desert environment, but the impact was not great. The U.S. military base soon discovered the 5 hunters' attack. Stop and accept inspection, otherwise we will use lethal firebore. Repeat, stop and accept inspection, otherwise we will use lethal firebore. After the warning was fruitless, the U.S. military decisively opened fire. The sound of the machine gun made the silent night suddenly noisy, but to the surprise of the U.S. military, the intensive shooting of the 2 M2 machine guns only repelled the opponent. The hunters' defense against machine guns was not weak, but the huge impact carried by the machine gun bullets themselves was not a joke. However, the hunter was still able to move forward despite the bullets, but the speed was not as fast as before. At the same time, the U.S. military base was also awakened by the gunshots. Most of the U.S. soldiers hurriedly stood up, and the commander of the military base, Colonel Mike, also stood up cursing. What happened? Colonel Mike found that the base seemed to have become hurried. We were attacked, and the target has not been killed, sir. An American soldier immediately said to Colonel Mike. What? Colonel Mike was stunned. Who is the enemy? At this time, the hunter took advantage of the machine gun bullets to jump a long distance and landed in the military base. Then he started killing. At this distance, the hunter was a terrifying killer. Without air support, the ground troops basically had no power to fight back against the hunter. The anti-tank mines, anti-tank infantry guns, and tank main guns that could effectively kill the hunter could not hit the fast-moving hunter. Ah, don't kill me. An American soldier was caught up by the hunter, and then he cut him into 10 pieces along with his bulletproof vest and gun with 1 claw. Benhez and his men watched all this with binoculars from a distance. Ha ha ha, that's it. Destroy these damned American lackeys. Benhez didn't expect the hunter to be more powerful than he imagined. So far, the hunter has caused hundreds of American soldiers to be injured, but they themselves have no casualties. In fact, with such dense firebore, the hunter will still be injured. After all, water drops wear away stones, not to mention that bullets are much more powerful than water drops. It's just that the hunter has a strong recovery ability. Even if he is injured, he can recover quickly and look like he is not injured. Then Colonel Mike finally couldn't help it. With this level of casualties, he probably had to go to military court. Use the maximum force, Colonel Mike ordered. So, originally the hunter was shot with a spark at most, but now the place where he was shot was actually emitting yellow smoke. This is a depleted uranium armor-piercing bullet. Anti-armor weapons used by the U.S. military in the Gulf War. Depleted uranium armor-piercing bullets are armor-piercing bullets made of uranium-238. When it hits an armored target, it will generate a high temperature of 6,000 degrees Celsius, causing great damage to the target's protective armor and killing people inside the armor. This bullet also has a certain degree of radioactivity, and even if the person hit is not killed on the spot, he will be killed by the radioactive elements. It is for this reason that depleted uranium armor-piercing bullets are out of the scope of conventional bullets, so the U.S. military has not used this bullet in combat. Chapter 26 Arrogance. The U.S. military's M2 machine gun kept spraying depleted uranium armor-piercing bullets at the hunters. The 5 hunters who were originally unharmed were finally injured. The physical fitness of the hunters has long surpassed that of ordinary people, so their injuries were not serious. The bullets were unable to follow up after penetrating their exoskeletons. After barely piercing the hunter's carapace-like skin, they got stuck in the dense muscles. This level of trauma was not enough to kill the hunters, but the high temperature generated by the depleted uranium armor-piercing bullets and the stinging pain caused by the radioactive elements still caused them great pain. The pain caused the hunters to become crazy and attack the soldiers who used depleted uranium armor-piercing bullets. Even if their internal organs were injured, the hunters' tenacious vitality allowed them to ignore these effects. Use anti-tank rocket launchers, the commander said angrily. Since anti-tank rocket launchers are anti-tank, hunters should have no problem with them. The reason why it was useless at first was that it was unnecessary. Secondly, it was in one's own base. Who would be responsible if someone missed the target and caused accidental damage? But now that the ban has been lifted by force, and it's been forced, I can't care so much anymore. 4 soldiers were seen holding rocket launchers, aiming at the hunters who were doing crazy damage. 1 soldier was killed before firing, but 3 rounds were fired successfully. The anti-tank rocket launcher was enough to cause damage to the hunters, but the hunters showed agility beyond their expectations. Not only did they avoid the rockets fired, but they also got closer to the fire points. In just 1 hour, every American soldier in this U.S. base was killed. Although Colonel Mike requested support very early, the U.S. drone was still late in arriving. As a result, nothing was left. U.S. military base. Of course, the bearded Benhas will not be satisfied with this attack, and this attack caused a shock in the United States without exaggeration. Ben has claimed responsibility for this terrorist attack. If you damn Americans don't get out of Afghanistan, the next base will look like this. Ben has said arrogantly. After reading it, Lucifer just wanted to say that Ben Hass really didn't know anything about the relationship. Originally, the Afghan U.S. military and America had never thought about completely eliminating the Tali version. After all, everyone knew that the Tali version was just Ami, an excuse for Rika. But now Ben has took the initiative to jump out and slap America in the face, so whether it was for America's face or something else, he was dead. However, it is also possible that America will take advantage of the panic caused by this terrorist attack. Lucifer thought for a while, and it seemed that America was not at any loss. However, what people didn't expect was that the first ones to take action were not the generals and the Congress masters who had not yet reached a conclusion, but the Ten Rings Gang. The Ten Rings Gang naturally felt that Ben Hass had broken the balance in Afghanistan, especially since this guy also attacked the U.S. military base regardless of life and death and wiped out all the U.S. troops stationed at the base. Although they did not know how he did it, this incident brought the consequences will be very serious. America might seize this opportunity and use terrorist attacks as an excuse to expand her influence and station troops in Afghanistan. That would definitely not be a good thing for the Ten Rings Gang. The Ten Rings Gang is very strong, but for America, it is far from enough for the country. Therefore, in order to avoid the above situation from happening, the Ten Rings Gang planned to kill Ben Hass and then disintegrate the Tali version, so that America would not have an excuse to expand its influence and garrison troops. But he didn't know what kind of power Ben has had obtained. Therefore, the Ten Rings Gang who acted rashly was quickly eliminated by Tali version. Ben Hass was arrogant to the extreme and declared that he would become the sole master of Afghanistan. The last one who was so arrogant seems to have died. And this unusual thing was also noticed by S.H.I.E.L.D., or Ben Hass had no intention of hiding it at all. The hunter was known by his men, and then it was spread that he had the support of the Lord. This 100 invulnerable, the monster with infinite strength, is the subordinate whom the Lord has given him to punish everything. S.H.I.E.L.D. was shocked when they saw the photo of Hunter. He looked very similar to Hulk, except that he was not wearing green, and there were 100 identical monsters. It seemed a bit reluctant to say that he was an alien, but he could only say that he was human. Mastered the technology to strengthen the human body. As for Ben Hass creating it himself, it's not that S.H.I.E.L.D. looked down on Ben Hass, but but that no one had this idea in their mind from the beginning. So S.H.I.E.L.D. quickly focused on Benhez and the Hunters. Hydra in S.H.I.E.L.D. is much faster than S.H.I.E.L.D. The temptation of the Hunter is too great, and Benhoz cannot stop it. After attracting the attention of Hydra, outside Benhoz's hiding place a missile crashed down, blasting a big hole in the ground. Then a group of people came to visit. Benhoz really wanted the Hunters to kill all these people, but his hiding place was found and he was threatened with a missile falling from the sky. As long as Benhoz's brain is not what, he will never do this. Are these monsters? They are really powerful. I wonder if Mr. Benhez can tell me where they came from. The man sent by Hydra was smiling and looked easy to talk to. He looked at the Hunters around Benhez in amazement. He knew why Benhez didn't let the Hunters tear them apart, and of course he wouldn't overstimulate him. Benhez glanced at him coldly. No matter who it was, his attitude would not be much better if his life was controlled by others. Don't worry, we just want to know where they came from, and then you can continue to be the uncrowned king of Afghanistan. This is a lie. In order not to expose Hydra, the second missile will fall on Benhez's head, which is enough to wipe him out with these monsters. Benhez still said nothing. Mr. Benhez, it's hard for us to do this. There are still 10 seconds before the second missile falls. I don't care, but your 11 wives, 5 sons and 2 daughters and yourself umbrella. Benhez said immediately. He didn't expect that his son and daughter were discovered even though they were hiding so tightly, not to mention that he didn't have to sacrifice his family's lives for Umbrella. Umbrella. The Hydra agent was confused. It was Umbrella Corporation. They contacted me and sold the Hunter to me. Chapter 27, Stealing Boeing's Business. Umbrella Company? The one whose president is Lucifer? This answer can be said to be beyond Hydra's expectations. After all, who would have thought that the genius who invented a super weapon, a new weapon that spanned the ages, would also develop an advanced product in another field? Just look at the records of these Hunters. 5 monsters wiped out a fully armed U.S. military base of more than 500 people, and not a single monster died. Without Air Force superiority, you can only rely on powerful weapons such as battleships. Only weapons such as naval guns and close-in defense guns can kill them. Yeah, it was that Umbrella Company, and they contacted me and said they had good weapons, and I went. Now that Benhez has spoken out, he will naturally not continue to hide it. $100 million for a Hunter seems very expensive, but both Hydra and Benhez feel it is well worth the money. Can the manpower and weapons hired for $500 million be able to completely wipe out a U.S. military base? Moreover, even the 10 Commandments gang was defeated. If Benhez hadn't been too arrogant and attracted the attention of Hydra, America might be happy to sing a double act with him and advocate Benhez threat theory. Thank you for your cooperation. After Hydra got what it wanted, it left. Benhoz was just about to breathe a sigh of relief when the AC-130 air gunship hovering at high altitude poured a lot of firepower towards the place where Benhoz was, and a heavy bomb fell from the sky with a loud bang, completely destroying the place. Vanished. Hunters naturally have no chance of surviving under such a terrifying blow. If they are super dangerous species, Tyrant may still survive and evolve, but they are only incomplete products. Interesting, Lucifer Alexander Pierce thought thoughtfully after getting the information. Hydra is naturally very covetous of Umbrella Company and Lucifer. The problem is that Lucifer has a mysterious background and is not weak. In addition, he also has super weapons. With such a powerful and advanced weapon, Hydra had to think twice before taking action against him. However, now Lucifer has come up with something incredible. It is the product of the Human Body Enhancement Project at first glance, and it is also a monster that is mature and can be mass-produced, and its combat power is not weak at all. Alexander Pierce didn't know if there was a more powerful hunter in Lucifer, but as the saying goes, good things should be kept for oneself, and Lucifer might be hiding such good things. It doesn't seem to be very difficult to get a hunter. He thought about it and felt that since Lucifer would find someone like Benhas to make a deal, it meant that he might be short of money, or that he just wanted to make money, which is exactly what a qualified arms dealer thought. Therefore, Hydra can use other identities to trade with him. Hydra is very covetous of biological weapons like hunters and wants to obtain them for research. Even if nothing can be learned from the research, it can enhance their strength. So, before Lucifer could decide whether his next target would be the Ten Rings gang or European gangsters, Hydra came to the door. Of course, they pretended to be other free organizations in the Middle East. Of course, Lucifer agreed to sell to them. After all, he intends to spread biological weapons secretly so that more people will come to him. Super weapons are destined to be impossible to install and mass produce because they are too expensive. Biological weapons are different. The price of $100 million can be said to be stuck at the key. I want to know if your company has any better products. The people sent by Hydra saw that it was going so well, so they bought 20 hunters and asked Lucifer at the same time. Of course there is a biological weapon super hunter that is better than the hunter, priced at $5 billion. Lucifer said affirmatively. Hydra was surprised. Is there really one? Of course there are better super hunters. Anyway, the difference between hunters and super hunters is only in the purity of Tyron cells, and the super hunter is so stimulated that his right hand takes the form of a blade like Alex Mercer, and his left hand is huge. The deformed crab claws are like normal, and their lethality is much stronger than that of hunters. At the same time, the super hunter's body surface also has a carapace in the shape of Brother A's armor, and its defensive power is even more outrageous than that of a tank. Hydra was also very interested in the super hunter, so he bought one. They are not short of money anyway. Lucifer only did these business matters personally because he found them interesting. During this period, he also paid attention to Tony Stark's actions and found that the emergence of super weapons did make Tony Stark work hard, but it was a pity that he did not. In order to complete the production of the small arc reactor, the steel suit produced lacked energy. It's like destiny. Tony Stark must be able to knock out a small arc reactor at that moment, which has caused Tony Stark to be under great pressure recently. The power of the super weapon has been demonstrated in a military operation of the U.S. military. Major allies of the U.S. military began to come to purchase it. After determining that it could not be copied, the American military gave the Umbrella Company a huge order. They canceled their order with Boeing for more than 900 Apache Longbow AH-64DS, and then used them to purchase super weapons, planning to use them as the main force of the army. To be honest, the emergence of super weapons has had the biggest impact on armed helicopters. Boeing has received a lot of terminated business this year, all of which were taken away by umbrella companies. Nowadays, the umbrella company's super weapons are mainly exported to Egypt, Greece, Israel, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, the Netherlands, the United Kingdom, and other countries. As for Russia, the rabbits, and America, of course, they are the countries that buy the most. When they were dismantling the super weapons, they found that the 3 small arc reactors that served as the power source were technically blocked. If they were opened forcibly, they might explode. That is a huge energy that is enough to meet the annual electricity consumption of a city. Once it explodes, the consequences will be disastrous. Unless you get permission to open it, it seems that the super weapon can be used like a self-destructing truck, but no one may do so, because this thing is too precious. A self-destructing truck worth $10 billion, and those countries that bought the super weapon would be crazy to do so. As long as it is not opened, this thing will be very stable, and it will stop the reaction in time if it is destroyed. After all, it is a subroutine artificial intelligence guards controlled by the Black Emperor. Even Black-Skinned Egg from SHIELD found a way to get a super weapon. Even though theoretically they shouldn't possess such dangerous weapons, but who is Black-Skinned Egg? He got it directly. Chapter 28 Buyout. Of course, Hype Luden would never have thought that the super weapon he got was actually Hydra using it for private purposes, even if Nick Fury made the procedure for deploying the super weapon very complicated and rigorous. The entire shield is basically Hydra, so isn't it easy to deceive the superiors and the subordinates? General Thaddeus E. Ross recently received a strange news that is, a successful and mature biological weapon appeared in the world. Although it is not as powerful as the Hulk, it has reached the standard of mass production and control. Who is Thaddeus E. Ross? Nicknamed General Thunderbolt, in the absence of news about the Hulk, he thought it would be a good idea to look for this biological weapon. In particular, Thaddeus E. Ross also got the actual situation of the U.S. military base that was attacked by the terrorist Ben Hass. Of course, this kind of military base is full of cameras. Fortunately, Ben Hass didn't understand these things during the destruction. He just asked his men to destroy most of the visible cameras, and the remaining cameras that were not seen clearly captured the scene of the hunter slaughtering. In the picture, the huge hunter moved quickly. It jumped high and landed on the roof of an infantry fighting vehicle. The impact caused the body of the infantry fighting vehicle to shake violently, and dust flew. Then the hunter grabbed the turret of the infantry fighting vehicle with both hands, and instantly burst out with great strength, directly breaking the latch between the turret and the body, and pulling out the entire turret together with the hanging basket and loader below. He threw the turret out casually, smashing the truck, and then jumped off the infantry fighting vehicle and grabbed the road wheel of another infantry fighting vehicle. The combat weight of the M2A5 is about more than 20 meters, but it was directly overturned by the hunter's terrifying strange power, rolling and crushing a military truck next to it into scrap metal. The hunter instantly raided and destroyed 2 infantry fighting vehicles that could pose a threat to him. Seeing this, Ross had already sat up straight. "Go die." An American soldier pulled the trigger at the hunter. The M4A1, produced under the authorization of Stark Industries, is well made. Some of the guns selected after screening can even be used as sniper rifles. However, these bullets cannot even break through the hunter's skin at close range, which reminds General Ross of the Hulk. This scene is so similar to the Hulk. Then the hunter broke into the American soldiers and set off a bloody storm. Almost no one could delay him for a moment. In a breath, the base was already dead and wounded. General Ross's eyes were full of fire. He felt that as long as he could get the technology of these monsters, then however, it was obvious that this was impossible. America was not a waste. After getting the video, although Hydra found Ben Hass's hiding place before them and killed him, America still found several men who followed Ben Hass to trade. It's not that Hydra is unprofessional in silencing people, but they didn't expect that a person like Ben Hass would not silence them. Can this kind of thing be known to others? So they knew the source of the hunter. Umbrella Corporation. This company, or rather, the boss of this company, Lucifer, was already approached by the 3 major key balls. America knew very well that they could not do anything to Lucifer. After all, there was no actual evidence to prove that those hunters came from the Umbrella Company. Even if Lucifer personally traded with Ben Hass, the powerful legal team of the Umbrella Company could distort it into a party program, and that person was pretending to be Ben Hass, and they could also find more than 100 witnesses that night. So America retreated to advance. It didn't matter if she couldn't move the Umbrella Company. Anyway, they wanted to move it when the super weapon came out, but they couldn't, let alone now. However, America said that they also had to have hunters. General Ross, hello. Lucifer actually knew about this matter. There was no way. In his position, there would be countless people trying their best to please him, not to mention this kind of thing. A favor from the Umbrella Company was more valuable than any money. Lucifer Ross looked at the Asian in front of him, and he didn't know why the other party had such a status in a place like America, relying on the invention of super weapons. Don't joke. If you don't have a background and backing, such a thing will only be eaten up by others. But he is still fine now, and there are 3 major keyballs behind him. Even America can't do whatever he wants to him. So Ross is in a complicated mood. The other party can create enhanced people, and after they are made, they are not completely uncontrollable like the failed Hulk, but soldiers who obey orders rationally, which makes him very interested. Do you know what happened to you? General Ross threw out the video. I think you misunderstood, General. After watching the video, Lucifer was not scared by Ross's tough words. It was not me who attacked the base. I just sold a batch of weapons to a customer. As for what he would do with these weapons, I don't know. Even so, it still doesn't change the fact that you funded the enemy of the country. This has caused huge losses to the country. You must take the responsibility you should bear. Ross's performance now is more interesting. He actually believed the other party's words so easily and believed that the other party was not the mastermind of the attack. Although he emphasized that the other party should be responsible, what is the responsibility to be taken? Send him to a military court and accept a fair trial by law. Humph, if it were 30 years ago, Ross might have such a naive idea. Now he is used to all kinds of dirty deals, and he just uses this as a bargaining chip to force the other party to make greater concessions in the next possible cooperation. As for the dead soldiers, in his heart, if their sacrifice can bring greater benefits to the country, then it is worth it. Okay, General Ross, why don't we be direct? What do you, or America behind you, want? Lucifer said bluntly. Ross paused for a moment, and it really surprised him that Lucifer would be so direct. I want all your hunters, including the future ones, and America can pay twice the price to buy them, on the condition that you are not allowed to sell them to anyone except us. Ross doesn't like to beat around the bush, so he followed suit and stated his conditions. $200 million for a hunter, and it is a buyout, which is a normal thing for America. Deal. But Lucifer was more straightforward than he thought. Chapter 29 Kidnapping. Lucifer could only say that they were too naive. Hunter was just a name. As long as Lucifer wanted, he could change it to another name at any time and then trade with others. Of course, in order to prevent America from being stimulated to the point of madness, Lucifer would adjust the appearance of Hunter to a certain extent, so that they would not look so similar. At night, when Tony Stark was hugging a woman, there was a sudden noise at the door, and then the door was kicked open. Ah! The woman screamed in fear. The group of people who rushed in looked fully armed and looked difficult to mess with. Who are you? I don't remember inviting you to my party. Tony Stark was about to say something lewd, and then he was knocked unconscious by a gun butt. What about this woman? After the mercenaries knocked Tony Stark unconscious, they tied him up and looked at the woman. Take her back, the captain of the mercenaries said calmly. They couldn't leave any traces to the company, so the woman was also knocked unconscious and carried away on her shoulders. After the incident, the scene was blocked by the police, the military, and agents. The SHIELD agents looked unhappy. The hotel's surveillance cameras lost all the footage of that period, and the guests who saw it in the hotel were all unconscious. There was no witness. Obviously, the person who did this was very cautious, and there should be a top hacker covering it. The surveillance cameras on the street also lost the footage of that period. Coulson reported to Nick Fury. Who do you think did it? Nick Fury had a headache and asked Coulson. I don't know, maybe those kidnappers who are eyeing the money of the Stark family. Coulson said that there were too few traces at the scene and there was no clue at all. After several days, Tony Stark's disappearance was made public. After all, Obadiah didn't want to affect the stock market of Stark Industries, but Lucifer had someone secretly expose this matter. This immediately affected the share price of Stark Industries. Tony Stark disappeared in America and has not been found until now. The entire New York City Police Department was scolded, and SHIELD was no exception. Nick Fury arranged people to protect and monitor Tony Stark, but now Tony Stark is missing. Both the CIA and the FBI were dispatched urgently. For the first time, the two major internal and external intelligence departments went all out and joined forces to find out the reason for Tony Stark's disappearance and where he is now. In the original plot, Tony Stark disappeared in Afghanistan, which is completely different from his disappearance in America or in New York City. The enemy can kidnap a big keyball like Tony Stark in America. Doesn't that mean that America has loopholes or defects in this regard? This is not a problem that can be ignored. The congressmen and those keyballs have joined forces to put pressure on them. Even their safety cannot be guaranteed. What is the meaning of America's existence? Tony Stark is missing today. Will it be Morgan's turn tomorrow? Will it be Rockefeller the day after tomorrow? This is a provocation. If America can't protect terrorists, why should they let America exist? For a time, the international situation was turbulent. America was like an enraged mad dog, biting people everywhere. Except for the two people in Europe and Asia who were watching the show with a smile, other countries were naturally affected to varying degrees. And the person involved, Mr. Tony Stark, was naturally sent to Afghanistan. He asked you to make a Jericho missile for him, and then he will let you go free. An elderly white man who replaced Yinsen said to Tony Stark. Tony Stark looked at the boastful terrorist in front of him. He won't do that. Tony Stark knew this very well. After seeing how powerful he was in making missiles, these terrorists would only go further. Moreover, he was very surprised that his Jericho missile had just been successfully developed and he had not yet contacted the Ministry of Defense and the American military to sell Jericho missiles. Why did these terrorists far away in the Middle East know about this? The terrorist in the original plot was simply brain dead. He obviously knew nothing about the modern industrial assembly line. His cave even needed a diesel generator for power supply. His subordinates were all illiterate. Even if Tony Stark was tied to the electric chair, there was no way to turn him into a factory. Without stable power supply, cutting-edge production equipment, well-trained production line workers, and high-quality management personnel, it is impossible to mass-produce modern weapons. However, Lucifer said that brain deadness didn't matter. This proved that the other party was an ignorant Afghan terrorist, not someone pretending to be one. At the same time, Tony Stark also saw a lot of Stark Industries weapons in the terrorist base. What's going on? How could Stark Industries sell weapons to terrorists? Tony Stark was in a complicated mood. He knew that Stark Industries probably had a mole inside, and the level was not low. However, he didn't suspect Obadiah for the time being. Instead, he was thinking that he was kidnapped by terrorists and didn't know what kind of mess Stark Industries was in. Originally, Lucifer did not intend to let his men pretend to be terrorists, but if he handed Tony Stark over to the Ten Rings, he was worried that the Ten Rings would return. After all, the Ten Rings were very familiar with Obadiah, the insider of Stark Industries. Maybe after Obadiah knew about it, he would be cruel and let the Ten Rings kill Tony Stark. Obadiah actually had such a plan, especially after a genius like Lucifer appeared. Tony Stark could not copy the super weapon of the Umbrella Company. Geniuses are no longer only owned by Stark Industries. Now there is another Lucifer, who seems to be more talented than Tony Stark. Lucifer sent people to kidnap Tony Stark because he felt that the time was ripe and Iron Man could be born. At that time, with him so arrogantly attracting villains to jump out in front, Lucifer can reap the benefits. Of course, there are not many high-quality villains on Earth, and Lucifer feels that killing criminals will not gain much experience points. After killing a few powerful ones and solving the problem of Hydra, he should go to the universe to fight the Kree Empire, which is an empire of an entire galaxy. If he destroys it, he should be able to upgrade to level 10, right? Chapter 30 Bronski. Follow the orders of Lucifer and these mercenaries pretending to be terrorists. They took Tony Stark out on time every day to show him the miserable conditions of ordinary civilians who were oppressed by terrorists who had obtained Stark's industrial weapons. Tony Stark went from being angry at the beginning to anxious, and restless, and now to the stage of self-blame, regret, and pain. After all, Tony Stark always thought that his weapons were for counterterrorism, but now they were obtained by terrorists and used to harm innocent people. This is also where Tony Stark is naturally different from other arms dealers. He still retains that rare innocence. It is not an accident that he became a hero, but the conditions already existed, but there was just a lack of activation. Lucifer was originally worried that Tony might not have reached that stage several years in advance and could not experience it. Now seeing Tony Stark's reaction, he knew he was worrying too much. Tony Stark becoming Iron Man was inevitable, but it will take some more training and let him suffer a little more. Tony Stark has not been recovered for many days, and there is not even any news. Most people have already assumed that Tony Stark may have been killed because the kidnappers did not even make a call to extort money, and Stark Industries' stock price began to suffer. The impact was a slight decline before, but now it is a sharp decline, like riding a roller coaster. Obadiah has smashed everything that can be smashed in the office. Every day when he opens his eyes, he sees the stock price of Stark Industries falling, which is so exciting that Obadiah almost suffers a stroke and cerebral hemorrhage. He is old and his heart cannot stand this stimulation. But the most important thing now is to find a way to stop losses. Although the inventions left by Tony Stark are enough for Stark Industries to last a lifetime, there are also many inventions owned by Tony Stark that cannot be used. It is the most valuable. So Obadiah targeted Umbrella Corporation. There is a new genius there. It would be great if Stark Industries could join forces with Umbrella Corporation. This is the new element discovered by Howard when he studied the Rubik's Cube after Tony Stark disappeared. All his original things were collected, and Lucifer successfully obtained the map model and found new elements. If we go to space in the future, we cannot solve the energy problem. The new element reactor is just right. It can release a huge energy of 10 billion joules per second. This is a miniaturized new element reactor. It must be installed on a spacecraft. Use that huge reactor. Then more energy can be generated. Moreover, as soon as the new element reactor is released, the production of super weapons and space battleships can begin. But we still have to solve the material problem first. Energy and materials are two indispensable parts of the history of scientific development. Theoretical science has reached a very scary level, but when it comes to practice, energy is not good and materials are not good. If it were a Marvel universe with mutants, then Lucifer could go directly to find adamantium alloy, which is the hardest alloy. Even the god of the universe once created an adamantium alloy wall to resist attacks. Although this resulted in the god of the universe's strength suddenly disappearing. Adamantium alloy, which can be made with just a simple molecular structure, can actually help resist attacks. If it is really the master of the universe, wouldn't it be better to use neutron star material? After all, neutron star material is more powerful than adamantium alloy anyway. And now because there is no adamantium alloy, the vibranium from Wakanda can only be used to create spaceships and space versions of super weapons. Fortunately, there are now leopards smuggling vibranium from Wakanda, and problems that can be solved with money are not a problem for Lucifer. Isn't it just $50,000 per gram? It's very cheap. If Lucifer were to sell it, it would cost at least $1 million per gram. General, we have information about that man. For General Ross, the umbrella company happily delivered 100 hunters to him, and General Ross also tried it and felt very satisfied. These hunters were just as obedient, but smarter and much more powerful than dogs. Which person? Is it him? General Ross didn't react at first, but then he became excited immediately after he reacted. Where? Brazil. The intelligence officer quickly reported the address. General Ross thought about it. Now that he had a powerful biological weapon like 100 hunters, the possibility of capturing the Hulk became even greater, so he set off immediately without hesitation. All this was spread within the hunter's sight, and the Black Emperor told Lucifer after analyzing the information obtained by the hunter. Found the Hulk. Lucifer only knew that when Hulk appeared, it seemed that Stan Lee drank a bottle of drink with Hulk's blood. As a result, the radiation was so severe that it attracted the attention of the military. It can only be said that it really stole the spotlight in all aspects. People don't know whether to watch Stan Lee or Hulk first. Maybe it's another step into the Hulk. Lucifer doesn't think it must be Stan Lee, but it could also be the Hulk dog plot, thinking that those Hulk dogs not only maintained the obedience and sensitivity of dogs, but could even bite the Hulk. Although Tyrant cells can also do it, Lucifer felt that he still had to get Hulk cells to see. I hope it won't involve the OBA under all things, otherwise nothing can be researched. After all, it is said in the comics that Hulk's power comes from the OBA beneath all things. General Ross also brought someone with him on this trip, Emil Blonsky. He originally played for the Royal Marines, but is now said to be on loan, and then became a member of General Ross. Mainland United States, Special Base. General Ross was holding a resume and said to an officer with a sinister face, "Emil Blonsky, Major, why are you still a major? Looking at your resume, you should have been promoted long ago." Ross was very surprised. Emil Blonsky was a very good soldier. He had served for many years, participated in many battles, and had outstanding merits. Logically speaking, he should have been promoted to lieutenant colonel or even colonel. "I like fighting, sir," Emil Blonsky answered with his hands behind his back. Major is the highest military rank that can personally participate in combat. If you are promoted further, you can only stay in the headquarters and be responsible for commanding. Like fighting? A born warrior? Ross declined to comment. "Ready to go. I hope you won't disappoint me, Major." General Ross said that Emil Bronski was the trump card he had originally prepared, but now that he has a hunter, he doesn't care much about it. Of course, it would be best if there is no need to dispatch a hunter. Chapter 31 Hulk vs. Hunter. After all, after dispatching the hunters, it will take a lot of energy to end the situation. After arriving in Brazil resolutely, Emil Blonsky led a special forces team he personally trained to round up Bruce Banner. He thought this mission would be easy because despite the emphasis from his superiors, the target was extremely dangerous. But he could still see at a glance that Bruce Banner was simply a weak scholar, and he had definitely not received any military training. Well, Boy Scout training did not count. Emil Bronski secretly guessed that this Banner might be a civilian employee of a terrorist organization responsible for managing funds, manufacturing weapons, etc., and he also knew many secrets, so the superiors asked to be captured alive. But after the action began, Emil Blonsky discovered that he was terribly wrong. Don't be like this. Bruce Banner was knocked down by smoke bombs and shock bombs, and then felt his heartbeat speed up, and the watch's program used to monitor his heartbeat beeped a warning sound. Emil Blonsky skillfully let his men overpower Bruce Banner, and then began to press his hands behind his back to tie him up. "It's out." Bruce Banner warned several times but was ignored, and then he couldn't control it anymore. The skin appeared green, and then swelled up quickly. The restraints on the hands were easily broken. The two soldiers were knocked away without any reaction and hit the wall. The strong vibration caused their internal organs and brains to lose their original shape. Emil Bronski's pupils shrank. He pulled the trigger on the green behemoth and fired a large number of tranquilizer bullets. But after these tranquilizer bombs hit the Hulk, they fell to the ground as weakly as feathers and were crushed by the Hulk's feet. "The tranquilizer bombs have lost their effect. Use live ammunition." Emil Blonsky immediately loudly informed his men and the command headquarters behind the headset. "What the hell is this?" Emil Blonsky was pumped with adrenaline. Secret capture and control failed, General. General Ross felt very angry. He had already told Emil Blonsky to use a tranquilizer bomb to knock him down when he saw the target, but it was obvious that Emil Blonsky had his own ideas. He might be worried that if the tranquilizer bomb would if you accidentally overdose and kill Bruce Banner, the weak scholar, you will be in trouble. As a result, I never expected that this weak scholar would now turn into an invulnerable big green guy who could use a forklift as a bowling ball. The bones of soldiers who were hit by unknown forklifts may have been turned into slag. It made Emil Bronski's hair stand on end. He felt that his body probably didn't want to be like that, so his potential exploded, as if he had returned to his youth. In the end, the entire Special Forces team died and only Emil Blonsky was left. Blonsky lives alone. The Hulk is about to run away. He doesn't want to hurt anyone, but when someone hurts him, he gets angry easily and then beats him back. Get the hunters out. General Ross took the microphone. So, a large transport truck that had been prepared opened the door, and the huge hunter walked out of it. General Ross brought 10 of the 100 hunters, which is equivalent to $2 billion US. As soon as the Green Hulk ran a certain distance, 10 hunters ran wildly to catch up with it. Hulk! Green Hulk roared, warning these guys that he was not someone to be trifled with. But the hunter was ordered to subdue it, so he ignored Hulk's warnings. Boom! A hunter pounced on him. Because of its size, it did not use its claws like it would against ordinary humans. Instead, it used grappling techniques. This was the first time Hulk encountered an enemy of similar size, so he was jumped by the hunter before he could react. He fell to the ground and his arms were twisted behind his back. However, Hulk then flailed his arm angrily, and the hunter was thrown away. Other hunters rushed up and tried to grab Hulk's hands and feet to subdue him. However, after Hulk got up quickly, the punch knocked away the hunter closest to him. The hunter was punched by the Hulk, and the bones in his face were shattered, but the shattering quickly disappeared. However, Hulk is now unable to defeat 4 hands with 2 fists, and the hunter is not far behind him. Unless he continues to be angry, he will have stronger and stronger body and strength, so it won't take long for him to be defeated. 10 hunters were firmly subdued. Good. General Ross was ecstatic. As expected of Umbrella Company, these hunters could even subdue the Hulk. After the Hulk was firmly suppressed, he became more and more angry. His current intelligence level is not as high as that of Gao Tianzhen's Sokka Star. Now Hulk has more of the intelligence of a baby, and he is easy to get angry and lose his mind. Then the suppression of the 10 hunters was blown away by a burst of anger from the Hulk. Before General Ross could reap the joy, the Green Hulk had already torn apart a captured hunter. Hulk is the strongest. Green Hulk roared, using the hunter that was torn in half as a weapon to fight with the remaining 9 hunters. What happened next was that the Green Hulk killed all the hunters, and General Ross had no way to intercept them, so he could only watch the Green Hulk run away. Damn, this is a direct loss of $2 billion US. General Ross looked at the hunter's body and didn't know what to do for a moment, but then the hunter's body began to decay and quickly degraded into a pool of liquid. This was a technical blockade designed by Lucifer. He set a mechanism for Tyron cells. When the body loses vitality, it will quickly decay and degrade. Hulk ran and jumped all the way, and he didn't know where he ran to. Hulk. At this moment, a voice suddenly appeared. Hulk turned around suddenly and saw a man flying in the air. Lucifer landed slowly. He looked for a while, and then came for the Hulk cell himself. By the way, he also wanted to try how high the upper limit of the movie version of Hulk was. Hulk stared at Lucifer without any action, just grinning. It usually doesn't actively hurt people, but it's eager to come out to play. The problem is that every time it comes out, someone attacks him, so Hulk looks extremely violent. Lucifer took a step forward, and then appeared in front of Hulk like teleportation. The Hulk was startled, and before he could react, Lucifer punched him. See you. Then the Hulk flew out at a speed of hundreds of meters per second, smashing countless things before stopping. Chapter 32 Hulk Cell. The punch just now exploded the air, and after the shock wave of the sonic boom spread, it swept away all the leaves of the surrounding trees, leaving only bare branches. Lucifer watched the Hulk get up in a panic, and then vomited a green liquid with high concentration of gamma radiation. The gamma radiation in this place is going to explode. Lucifer shook his head. The Hulk's body has terrifying gamma radiation, which is enough to kill people alive. Even if he doesn't die, his cells and immune mechanisms will be destroyed, which is no different from death. Hulk. Then the Hulk was extremely angry. He had never been beaten so painfully, so he was immediately enraged, and his body became stronger, looking like he had grown bigger. Then the Hulk rushed towards Lucifer at a speed of more than 500 kilometers per hour. With such a huge body and such a fast-moving speed, it can only be said that he is worthy of being angry at the conservation of matter. A normal home run. Lucifer bent his left hand, and when Hulk approached, he swung it suddenly, just like a baseball bat hitting a baseball, and hit Hulk into the sky. Good shot. Lucifer looked into the distance and saw a green thing that was hit to the horizon by him. The heat barrier caused by the intense friction with the air caused most of Hulk's skin to be rubbed off, and he screamed in pain. It is unknown how far it flew, but after landing, a large pit was blown out within a few hundred meters. After all, the speed and mass are here, and the energy generated will definitely not be much worse than that of a blockbuster bomb. When Hulk landed and hit a huge crater like a meteorite, Lucifer had already stepped on the edge of the pit with 1 foot. The surrounding soil was still smoking, and there was a crystallized ground. Hulk was panting at the bottom of the pit. He lay on the ground weakly, and his skin was rubbed off by the air. Only the fluorescent green muscles were wriggling, and gamma-ray radiation was released in all directions. Seeing that Hulk seemed to have no strength to resist, Lucifer was a little disappointed, and then he flew into the pit. At this moment, Hulk suddenly stood up and grabbed Lucifer. "Oh, you can cheat again." Lucifer did not move at all. Hulk wanted to crush him to death, but Lucifer exerted force with both arms. Hulk looked at his hands being stretched out little by little in disbelief. The speed was not fast, but with a firmness that could not be shaken. Hulk roared, his skin recovered quickly, and became stronger, wanting to wrestle with Lucifer. However, Lucifer also became interested. His feet seemed to take root, and now, with the force of both hands, Hulk let out an uneasy roar. It was lifted up by Lucifer little by little, and his feet left the ground and kicked wildly. Ha! Kryptonian version, Hell Bliss Fall. Lucifer swung Hulk and smashed him around, like Loki who had eaten a set of green Hell Bliss Fall in the future. Boom, boom, boom. An earthquake occurred on the ground. Every time the Hulk came into close contact with the ground, the Hulk's painful howl could be heard. The green Hulk is spinning and charging. This time, Lucifer swung the Hulk like a green phantom, and even caused a small hurricane. Everything around was attacked, and then the Hulk was thrown out by Lucifer. After landing, the Hulk lay flat and fainted. Lucifer easily got the Hulk's cells this time. Fortunately, I have a biological force field and am not afraid of radiation. Otherwise, I would be disabled if I were in such close contact. Lucifer looked at the crystal-clear liquid in the syringe that looked like the antidote for the T-virus. The blood in Bruce Banner's state is naturally red, but the Hulk is green, from the blood that flowed out of its mouth and nose after being knocked down by Thanos. It can be seen that what Lucifer wants is naturally this kind of Hulk cell full of gamma-ray radiation energy, not the cells of Bruce Banner. Dr. Banner, have a good sleep. Lucifer glanced at Bruce Banner, who had turned back into Bruce Banner, and said. Then he returned to his company, and there was no need to clean up the radiation, as the bioforce field would not leave any radiation. It is much safer than those protective measures. The first thing to do with Hulk cells is to study their mechanism, and then replicate and clone them, so as not to use them up all at once, and it would be too troublesome to continue beating the Hulk to extract them. Lucifer was actually worried that if he beat the Hulk too much, he would become timid, just like the Hulk after being beaten by Thanos. Of course, there are two theories here. One is that the Hulk felt that the people on Earth hated him, so he refused to fight on Earth, and the other is that he was beaten by Thanos. But most people agree that it is the second one. After all, it is the time for the survival of the entire universe. It is incredible that the Hulk still cares about the fact that the people on Earth hate him. He is not a newborn baby who has just been born and does not have much thinking ability. When he demolished his own house with Thor, he was able to think and communicate with Thor, and he seemed smarter than Thor. But it doesn't matter to Lucifer. He will definitely take Thanos' head in the future, and maybe he will use the quantum field to go to other parallel universes to kill other Thanos to gain experience points. Then it won't be the Hulk's turn. Interesting, simple copying and cloning can't be cultivated. This thing needs gamma ray radiation energy to cultivate. Lucifer found it incredible after studying it. Fortunately, it was not a big deal for him to get an instrument that could produce gamma ray radiation, so Lucifer cultivated a large number of Hulk cells. Originally, Lucifer wanted to see if Hulk cells and Tyran cells could be mixed together to create a powerful monster, but Hulk cells and Tyran cells were incompatible. They were like mortal enemies. None of the more than 100 experimental subjects succeeded, and all died of collapse. The two major cells fought each other and there was no compromise. Before Lucifer could research anything, General Ross came to him. Unlike the original plot that let Bronski inject super soldier serum, because the biological weapon hunter of the Umbrella Company is very good, even if it is not the opponent of the Green Hulk, but maybe the Umbrella Company has a biological weapon that can target the Green Hulk. How is it? General Ross asked after seeing Lucifer finish watching the video of the hunter fighting the Green Hulk. Is this the Hulk? Lucifer said he was powerless. He just invented the biological weapon Hunter. If Hunter couldn't do anything, why not try the fighter jet? General Ross left disappointed. Chapter 33 Wailing. Afghanistan, a remote place where even terrorists would not come. Tony Stark was imprisoned in such a place, acting out a play every day. Lucifer arranged a bunch of people to play the scenes of being threatened and shot by terrorists for Tony Stark to watch slowly. The translator and doctor who replaced Yinsen would tell Tony Stark what happened at this time. This further increased Tony Stark's sense of guilt, although Lucifer did not know whether this would create a blackened Iron Man, such as Unjust Iron Man. But considering that even if an Unjust Iron Man really came out, he could easily kill him, Lucifer did not care. Tony Stark woke up from his dream in a daze. He felt that his spirit was on the verge of collapse. Yesterday, the terrorists shot and killed a group of innocent civilians in front of him. They died because of you, Tony. Because of your advanced weapons, the local government forces were unable to defeat the armed forces of these terrorists. They can do whatever they want here. I have seen this scene hundreds of times. Fake Yinsen said this to Tony Stark. It was a condemnation and an accusation. Tony Stark sat on the simple cement bed and he scratched his hair with both hands in pain. He felt that this was an invisible torture chamber and hell. He felt that he could hear the souls of the innocent people who died because of him wailing. This was not an illusion. Lucifer arranged for someone to wail in Tony Stark's ear after he fell asleep. For example, I died so miserably, Tony Stark. You should go to hell. Go to hell, Tony Stark. And so on. Under the sleepless night and painful torture, Tony Stark could still hold on for so long because he had begun to radiate the spirit and will of a hero. The terrorists asked Tony Stark to produce the Jericho missile, and Tony Stark kept delaying at first. But now he has figured it out. It is meaningless to keep delaying. There is no way to change the current predicament. It is better to take the initiative in his own hands. After all, these terrorists must not know a single word. Then he can fool them and put on the iron armor he made to fight out of the siege. Lucifer's super weapon has demonstrated its power and war value. Otherwise, there would not be so many people chasing after it. With actual combat proof, Tony Stark is naturally confident. Although the iron armor he produced in this simple environment cannot be as powerful as Lucifer's super weapon, it is enough to deal with these terrorists. After watching Tony Stark's situation, Lucifer ordered his men, "Cause him some trouble, don't let him go too smoothly, I don't want him to come back so soon." Lucifer said to the people over there, "Boss, what should we do specifically?" The mercenaries over there showed a difficult expression. They only knew that they could not kill Tony Stark, but they didn't know anything else. For example, you can suddenly be attacked by another group of terrorists when he is about to complete the Iron Man suit. Yinsen can die in the attack, and then the Iron Man suit is accidentally blown up. Tony Stark is caught by you, and the previous group of people are all killed. At this time, you accidentally recognize Tony Stark, so you ask him to continue to make Jericho missiles. Lucifer said that this is not difficult and directly arranged a script, and the recyclability of this script is very high. The death of Yinsen is estimated to stabilize Tony Stark's determination to become a superhero, and then arrange another Yinsen for him. "I know, boss." The mercenary on the opposite side felt very weird, but didn't say anything. "Tony Stark, give me back my home. Tony Stark, you killed my family, you are an executioner. Tony Stark. Tony Stark." No. Tony suddenly woke up from his dream. He looked around blankly, and the clear wailing seemed to have just left his ears. "Are you okay, Tony?" Yinsen got up from the bed next to him. Tony rubbed his temples and smiled reluctantly. "I'm fine." The heavy dark circles made Tony look haggard like a dying man. But since he had woken up from the wailing, Tony was no longer sleepy, so he had to hurry up to finish the Iron Man suit. Yinsen seemed to be woken up by him and did not continue to sleep. After a while, a cup of steaming hot chocolate was placed next to him. "What is this?" Tony was surprised. He had been captured here for a long time. He had gotten used to the bad food here, the sticky dough and the fresh fruits and meat that were only available once a month. As for coffee and chocolate, which are the things that Americans need most, there was no such thing at all. There was only water here, and even the water was not very clean. At first, Tony was very stubborn and refused to eat. He asked the terrorists to prepare Simmons, cheeseburgers and fine wine for him. The terrorists ignored him. After a few meals of hunger, Tony licked the plate cleaner than a dog. There is no human being who can resist hunger with his own willpower. A starving person can even stuff dirt into his stomach, so there is no need to force him to eat. I asked them to give it to me. I see you haven't had much energy lately, Yinsen said with a smile. Tony paused and his throat felt a little itchy. Tony was very touched by Yinsen's change from being hostile when he came to the present. He didn't know what to say. He could only swear that he would rescue Yinsen together and let he was able to return to his daughter. Without saying anything more, he just said thank you. Tony drank up the hot chocolate in a few mouthfuls, and then felt as if he had come to life again. He knew that this was a psychological effect. In fact, the calories provided by that cup of hot chocolate were not enough. It met his immediate needs, but that was enough. Tony Stark, who was aroused with enthusiasm, devoted 100% of his energy to forging the steel suit. The moment the steel suit was hammered into shape, Tony was excited in his heart. As a result, at this moment, there was news outside. Here comes the fierce explosions and gunshots. The mercenaries outside dressed up a group of captured terrorists in their costumes, shot them to death, and then fired and threw grenades in chaos. In no time, the surrounding area turned into a burning ruins of a battlefield. What happened? Tony was very puzzled. Could it be that the terrorists outside were fighting among themselves? Chapter 34, France and Germany. Then, before Tony could think of taking this opportunity to put on the steel suit and fight out, a rocket flew in. Tony didn't know why he seemed to be able to see the rocket flying at a very slow speed at this moment. Of course, he and everything around him moved slower. The rocket emitted tail flames. During the slow rotation, Tony saw the Stark Industries logo on the rocket, and his pupils suddenly shrank. Boom! The rocket hit the wall and exploded immediately. The explosion directly shattered Tony's Hope steel suit. He and Yin Sen were also blown up and hit the wall. Tony Stark fell heavily. He fell to the ground, and before he could digest the fact that his steel suit was blown to pieces, he saw a piece of shrapnel stuck in Yin Sen's left chest. At this time, blood overflowed, dyeing Yin Sen's clothes black. No, 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 Yin Sen. Tony struggled to get up, and Yin Sen shook his head with difficulty. On the verge of death, he showed a smile that would be unforgettable to Tony from now on. Tony, come on, finish, you won't finish. After saying that, Yin Sen tilted his head, and Tony just felt like a bolt from the blue. He was stunned and didn't know what to do. He didn't even pay attention to a group of people rushing in. He stared blankly at Yin Sen's body, and then was picked up without any reaction. When he was taken out, Tony Stark saw the corpses on the ground, the corpses of the terrorists who had threatened him. Then he was covered with a hood and couldn't see anything except that he was in a helicopter. The helicopter landed not long after flying. Tony Stark had no idea that the entire helicopter had been transported by Lucifer to the second simulated Tony Stark torture chamber that he carefully prepared. It is common sense that the flight time is short. There can't be so many terrorists flying far away in helicopters to fight. Lucifer nodded with satisfaction when he saw his men following his orders and completing the first script. Then came his own headache, Hulk cells and Tyrant cells. However, Lucifer quickly thought of a solution. Biological weapons such as hunters and super hunters are just Lucifer's personal preference, which is a tribute to the Umbrella Company. A more practical case would of course be super soldiers. Lucifer gave up the idea of merging Hulk cells and Tyrant cells into one to create a super monster. Instead, a clone was created, and then someone gave him plastic surgery, and finally a clone of Albert Wesker that was very similar to the Resident Evil game version was born. Tyrant cells are very similar to stable G viruses, which can be artificially controlled to influence evolution and mutation. Therefore, even if Lucifer can obtain the G virus in the future, he will probably not look down on the G virus. Instead, the G virus can be used to stimulate Tyrant cells, allowing them to evolve super strong antibodies and immune systems. Now, naturally, Albert Wesker was injected with Tyrant cells. Lucifer did not have the idea of completely creating the original version. He cut off most of the mechanisms of Tyrant cells, especially the ones that were very close to Doomsday and Leaf Rot. The ability to super-evolve retains the recovery speed of an immortal body. The recovery ability of Tyrant cells is about the same level as that of Wolverine. They are both reborn at the molecular level. However, Wolverine has to rely on bones to make cells for regeneration, while Tyrant cells do not need to be captured as long as there is one cell alive. The organism can recover. By the way, Lucifer also modified the memory of this Albert Wesker, which cannot be said to be modified, but rather fabricated, because the clone itself has no memory. Naturally, the charm of Wesker from the original plot has to be written into this clone. We don't expect him to be completely like the original. After all, there are 1,000 Hamlets in the eyes of 1,000 people. The Wesker in Lucifer's impression may not be the same as Wesker himself. There is a big difference. The virus fusion is complete. Albert Wesker woke up from his deep sleep, his brain tingling for a moment, and then he remembered that the reason for his deep sleep was to fuse the extremely evil substance that could desecrate the realm of God, the G virus. How's it going, Wesker? Lucifer appeared with his hands behind his back. Fade. Wesker looked at Lucifer, the memory coming to mind. This is his father Lucifer. because he was strengthened by the G-virus, he remains young forever, is infinitely powerful, as fast as lightning, and has unfathomable strength. I feel great and full of energy. Wesker left the dormant chamber. He felt that he was much stronger than when he was an ordinary person before. That's good. Lucifer nodded with satisfaction. In fact, tyrant cells should be able to evolve the teleportation, telekinesis, blood into fire, etc. operations in Biohazard, so Wesker may become teleportation and drinking water in the future. A man who is as simple as eating. There's a show that might be a good fit for you to be on. As soon as Lucifer finished speaking, the Black Emperor projected a video between the two of them. It was on the streets of New York. A huge yellow monster and a green giant-like monster were fighting in the city center. Go, my boy, it's time for everyone to know the power of the Umbrella Corporation, Lucifer said to Wesker in a playful tone. Yes, Fade. Wesker was watching intently, then turned around and left without hesitation. He found that his speed was getting faster and faster. Just now, he was just using the speed of an ordinary person, but now, it soared to a terrifying speed of 100 meters per second. By the way, General Ross went back to commit suicide after getting a negative answer from me. Lucifer shook the wine glass worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, which contained Arctic iced cola. This bottle of cola had just been opened, and the gas was poured into the wine glass without any leakage, and there was no need to deflate it like red wine. Then he chewed the cola with fine cola ice cubes, while thinking about how outrageous it was that General Ross could become the Secretary of State after committing such a suicide. The Abomination was killing people on the street, and even the depleted uranium armor-piercing bullets only emitted yellow smoke when they hit it, and then the person who fired the depleted uranium armor-piercing bullet was punched into a pulp by the Abomination. Bronski and General Ross hit it off immediately. Not only did he inject the super soldier serum, but General Ross was so cruel that he injected all the hunter tissues that he had collected and frozen to prevent them from decaying and degrading into Bronski's body. This was completely a death wish. The tyrant cells that execute the self-destruction program don't care who you are, so Bronski is doomed to die, but he found Mr. Blue and injected himself with Hulk's blood. Chapter 35 Wesker vs. Abomination. The tyrant cells that perform self-destruction no longer have the ability to compete with the Hulk cells, and with the super soldier serum as a neutralizer, Bronski surprisingly survived and became the Abomination. It's just that the Abomination that has gone through this change is naturally different from the original plot. Now it is more like the Hulk in Crossfire, and it is also the Hulk that has evolved after absorbing life energy. It is covered with bone spurs and exudes the color of fluorescent green, is itself a fluorescent green. External gamma-ray radiation. Tyrant cells have brought out the characteristics of Hulk cells to the fullest extent, so even if they just pass by Abomination now, they will be worse than dead due to radiation lesions in the days to come. The Hulk is being beaten very badly now. The main reason is because Bruce Banner has just injected an inhibitor, which makes the Hulk very weak. Otherwise, the Hulk who has seen Lucifer's terrifying Hulk will not be able to deal with even the stronger Abomination. It's within reach. After all, Lucifer hits it like a ball. You don't deserve such power at all. Hated Bronski stepped on Hulk's body. Hulk was very angry, but he couldn't get up. Just then, a figure appeared. Who is that? General Ross is worried about how to end it. The black-skinned stewed egg at S.H.I.E.L.D. has made up his mind not to help and let the military take care of it. Who told General Ross not to listen to him and insist on studying? Then they saw a man wearing a black coat, a pair of sunglasses, and a blonde hairdo appear on the scene. This speed made Bronski stunned. Big Guy was pulled on his windbreaker. Fortunately, it was made of special material. Ordinary clothes might not be able to withstand his sonic movement of more than 300 meters per second. Who are you? Hated Bronski asked. I'm Albert Wesker of the Umbrella Corporation. After Tony Stark disappeared, Umbrella Corporation has become a giant, relying on super weapons and secret biological weapons transactions to gain enough attention. The reason why the genuine Umbrella Company cannot do this is because the organic, biological weapons BOW such as Tyrant are too weak compared to Hunters. Biological weapons that can kill with one rocket launcher, while Hunters ignore automatic rifles and most guns can recover quickly even if they are wounded. It's true that flesh and blood carbon-based creatures are no better than guns, but those in fantasy works don't count. That's why umbrella companies were able to obtain their current status and capital. Therefore, after hearing that the other party was from the umbrella company, General Ross punched the wall of the helicopter. Seeing the inhuman movement speed of Albert Wesker just now, General Ross didn't know about the umbrella company. The company also hides goodies like super soldiers. But even if he knew about it, there seemed to be nothing the umbrella company could do about it. Umbrella company? Hating Bronski obviously also thought of those hunters. After his mission failed, he went out and once suppressed the Hulk. Although the back was torn apart by hands, General Ross still had 90 hunters. It is said that these biological weapons called hunters come from the umbrella company. Okay, stop talking nonsense and let me see your power. Albert Wesker was eager to try and launched an attack without hesitation. With one step, it was an elbow to the heart. However, due to the difference in size, Wesker's elbow can only reach the abdomen of Bronski. Bronski originally planned to see what Wesker was capable of. When the elbow hit his abdomen, he immediately felt something bad. Then he was sent flying by Wesker's blow and crashed into a store. The bones in your body are quite strong. Wesker looked at the sleeves of the windbreaker that had been torn apart. The bloody arms quickly recovered and became stronger. After Wesker was injected with Tyrant cells, a protective film was formed on the surface of the body, with sufficient flexibility and defense. Boy, you're dead. Bronski appeared unscathed. Wesker's blow just now really couldn't hurt him, but Wesker didn't care. He was just testing the performance of the G-virus. The perfect G is definitely much more powerful than these things. Then hateful Bronski slapped Wesker. Although Wesker looked down on these monsters whose appearance had changed, he still knew that his power could not compete with them, and it didn't matter. The difference between gods and monsters is like the difference between humans and animals, wisdom. Wesker avoided Bronski's slap, and then attacked Bronski's joints, such as kicking his kneecaps. Bronski was immediately kicked to one knee. It was naturally impossible for ordinary people to kick Bronski and trigger his conditioned reflex, but Wesker had enough power to do so. There are countless types of fighting techniques for humanoid targets on the Earth. Therefore, even if Bronski becomes stronger, as long as he cannot become infinitely stronger like the Hulk, Wesker can crush him to death. Dead. However, Bronski was also a veteran soldier. He immediately judged that Wesker's strength and speed were not much worse than his own. In this situation where the size of both sides could not determine the difference in advantage, skills were the second decisive factor. So Bronski rolled to avoid Wesker's combo that followed, then stood up and took a counterattack. Using human fighting skills, monster. Wesker was a little surprised and then sneered. He didn't know that these two monsters were actually transformed from humans. He thought they were monsters at the beginning. Then Wesker became interested. In his memory, he was born a genius and learned all kinds of fighting skills from all over the world. Later, he plunged into the martial arts of the Hue dynasty and couldn't get out. Unlike his father, that was a real martial arts legend who was proficient in martial arts all over the world. In fact, it was not so mysterious. Lucifer was a Kryptonian, so of course he learned things quickly. In the DC world, he might be able to fight Ms. Shiva with fighting skills alone. Wesker, who had never met an opponent except his father, was naturally very excited at this time. Then General Ross and S.H.I.E.L.D. were all stunned to see a man and a monster fighting on the battlefield. And the Hulk was lying on the side. Once upon a time, General Ross thought that Hulk was invincible, and the biological weapon of the hand-torn hunter proved this. So the abomination that obtained the power of the Hulk was also invincible. Chapter 36 Solution. Even the Hulk was no match for Bronski, who had gained the power of the Hulk. General Ross immediately thought of using a nuclear bomb to kill Bronski, but now that he saw Wesker and Abomination Bronski fighting evenly, he changed his mind. Well, Umbrella Corporation, I didn't expect you to hide so deeply and even have such a powerful super soldier. At this time, the Hulk finally recovered and rushed over to wrestle with Abomination Bronski, while Wesker watched coldly, watching the two monsters fight each other. Human wisdom is not only reflected in skills, but also in the benefits of being a fisherman. Then the Hulk was a little fierce after recovering from weakness, mainly because Lucifer's beating raised his lower limit, and the Hulk became stronger, so he knocked down the Abomination in a few moves and strangled him to unconsciousness. Wesker looked at the Hulk warily, but the Hulk didn't look at him, but gradually turned back into Bruce Banner. Human? Wesker was very surprised. General Ross wanted to retrieve Abomination Bronski, but soon, the Umbrella Corporation took over. You can't do this. This is military stuff. General Ross said angrily. No, we can do this, and you are no longer a general, Mr. Ross. Albert Wesker put on a new pair of sunglasses, which were broken because of the fierce battle. General Ross was speechless. He could have suppressed such a big noise and destruction, but he couldn't stand the S.H.I.E.L.D. watching. S.H.I.E.L.D. would never miss the opportunity to bring him down. After all, what he did was too serious. The power of the Umbrella Corporation is not small at all now, especially after they took the initiative to show the existence of Wesker. In the eyes of those people in America, the Umbrella Corporation has mastered mature human enhancement technology. After all, Wesker is much more powerful than Captain America. Abomination Bronski was fixed by the Umbrella Corporation with a special restraint device, and then transported away with an Optimus Prime. Nick Fury watched the battle almost the whole time, and soon found the information about Albert Wesker. One of the top executives of the Umbrella Corporation, his identity is a mystery, and it is not known what his relationship with Lucifer is. But the strength and speed he showed made Nick Fury very concerned. He can actually fight with monsters like Hulk. As the technology of the Umbrella Corporation reached this level, after recovering the Abomination Bronski, other forces quickly contacted the Umbrella Corporation. They also wanted to get Wesker's enhanced technology. However, the Umbrella Corporation said that this is their company's product, but the product is not stable enough at present, so it is not considered for sale for the time being. Even if they really want to say that they can study together if there are any problems, brainstorming. However, the Umbrella Corporation is not the capitalist of America after all. At present, the Umbrella Corporation has planned to establish branch bases in many countries around the world. The standards are all underground bases built according to the level of nuclear defense fortifications, which are thousands of meters deep underground. So Lucifer and his men can leave America at any time, and now it is America that needs them, not the Umbrella Corporation that needs America. Fard. Wesker returned to his home, or company, and saw that the just recycled Abomination Bronski had appeared in front of his father. It was obvious that his father had already conducted preliminary research on him. You are really asking for death. Lucifer complained about General Ross, but soon his interest turned to Abomination Bronski. This guy couldn't turn back into Bruce Banner like Hulk, but Lucifer thought it was a waste to kill him, and he wouldn't gain much experience points. It would be better to recycle him, for example, to solve the problem that he couldn't turn back. And the whole body emitting gamma ray radiation is also very dangerous. My child, you go to host the base in the Sahara Desert. You should have a lot of guests recently, Lucifer said to Wesker while studying. Fard, then Wesker didn't resist going to the Sahara Desert, mainly because the umbrella company had bought the entire Sahara Desert through interest exchange. Its total area is over 9,400,000 square kilometers, 3,600,000 square miles, which is equivalent to the land area of the United States. As for the opinions of the locals, Umbrella Corporation believes that they will be very satisfied. The reason why Umbrella Corporation chose the Sahara Desert is mainly because it is large and there is not much traffic. In addition, with the technology of Umbrella Corporation, it is not difficult to build a super large city or underground city. It is not worthwhile to develop the desert. The best mercenaries who signed a contract with Umbrella Corporation were selected and injected with Tyrant cells to become super soldiers comparable to Captain America. This made other mercenaries more loyal to Umbrella Corporation, although they had already sold their lives for money. But after there was an example of super soldiers, and Umbrella Corporation also said that it would strengthen those who performed well, which was regarded as an employee reward. It was different. However, this news naturally could not be concealed from Hydra and other countries, mainly because there were Hydra agents and agents from other countries among these mercenaries, and even some of the super soldiers were agents. Lucifer did not care that they were all agents. As we all know, agents would work hard just to get promoted to a high position as soon as possible and then gain power and intelligence. Anyway, with Wesker, Lucifer had already told him who the agent was. As his son, Wesker would definitely support the family business. Moreover, the original Wesker wanted to become a god and believed that gods did not need a father, but Lucifer did not have this problem. He could even kill the original owner of Tyrant cells, let alone a castrated version of Tyrant cells like Wesker. Next, Lucifer solved the problem of Bronski's inability to change back, and told him that the Umbrella Corporation had implanted a micronuclear bomb in his body, which could vaporize him as long as it exploded. Now, Emil Bronski could not return to the military, although the military would definitely not mind what he had done. Then Emil Bronski saw the times and became the security director of Umbrella Corporation. His transformed Abomination form was also changed by the newly injected Tyrant cells. At the same time, he did not become the Abomination in the movie. After the modification, he became much more majestic and domineering. Chapter 37: The Suffering Tony Stark and Vanke Industry. In Afghanistan, Tony Stark's hood was taken off after he got off the plane. It was another place filled with yellow sand, but it looked a little more powerful than the group of terrorists he stayed with before. No wonder he could be killed. That group of terrorists just looks like they have fallen into the hands of another group of terrorists. Then Tony Stark saw the dazzling array of Stark Industries arms and weapons, and his face suddenly became very ugly. Even if a group of terrorists had them, this group of terrorists also had them. Do Stark Industries weapons serve justice and America, or do they serve terrorists? Thinking of the weapons he was proud of, killing rebels and innocents every day, Tony Stark's conscience was once again tortured and condemned. They found out you were Tony Stark and wanted you to help them build the Jericho missile. Then no. Tu Yin-sen, who was about the same size as the previous Yin-sen and even looked slightly different, was taken to Tony Stark's cage by the terrorist leader and served as a translator. In fact, Tony Stark no longer needs a translator. Tony Stark, who was listening to the previous conversation between Yin-san and the terrorists, had already mastered this unfamiliar language system, and his daily communication was completely no problem anymore. But looking at this translator who looked very similar to Yin-san, Tony still didn't refuse. Tell them it's impossible. Tony had just been blown out of his steel suit, and Yin-san was still dead. He was feeling sad and world-weary, and his temper was rising. The terrorists had no intention of beating him, and left after hearing that Tony Stark refused to make missiles. You guys have been speaking in a different language these days. Tony Stark has learned Arabic through the previous conversations between Yin-san and you. Lucifer said to the mercenaries. The mercenaries were shocked. No way, someone could be so perverted. When Lucifer was also staring at Tony Stark, he found that he did not have the same confused expression as before when others were talking to No. Tu Yin Sen. Instead, he was thoughtful, and then he knew that Tony Stark Graham has learned most of Arabic. It's a bit surprising, but it makes sense when you think about it. After all, this is Tony Stark. So, next, Tony Stark found that the terrorists' language was changed to words he could not understand. Hanson, what language are they speaking? Tony asked with a frown. It should be Hebrew, which is the common language of Israel. Hanson pretended to be unsure and replied. In fact, he was surprised that Tony Stark actually learned Arabic. After all, he could tell that the terrorists spoke another language. Oops, this guy is a monster. Will he have to change the language every few days? Lucifer is not panic at all. We have run out of languages in the Middle East, so we can still use the language of rabbits, such as the Devil's Language Wenju dialect. If Tony Stark can even learn that, then there is also Hunan dialect. Cantonese, Hokkien, a lot of languages. If Tony Stark could really learn all the dialects in China, then Lucifer would be willing to give him the title of the first human linguist. Tony Stark was stubborn at first, but when he discovered that the terrorists had not arranged food for him for a day, Tony Stark panicked. Because he was familiar with this routine. The same was true for the previous group of terrorists. When he asked for red wine steak and cheeseburger instead of this sticky dough, the other party didn't say anything, but they didn't give him any dough for the next few days. By the fourth day, Tony Stark was licking the plate cleaner than a dog. The taste of hunger makes even people with strong willpower unable to bear the urge to eat cotton and soil. They stuff in everything they can fit into their stomachs. Even if they die, they can't care so much. Torture. Lucifer was afraid that Tony, with his small body, would fall ill after a few beatings, and then the root of the disease would fall into his trap and he would become a sickly cripple. How could this kind of starvation punishment be useful? It was similar to water torture, but Lucifer felt that starvation was more effective good. Anyway, it's okay to go hungry for a few meals. On the contrary, it can help Tony lose weight, detoxify and prevent fatty liver, alcoholic liver disease, vascular sclerosis, high blood pressure, and cardiovascular and cerebrovascular diseases. After all, he ate high-calorie foods and drank red wine. Red wine is not bad, but it is too much to enjoy without wine. Being vegetarian for a period of time is good for physical and mental health. Tony Stark originally thought that he could last longer this time, but he had not gone through systematic starvation training, which made him even more intolerable to hunger. He couldn't stand it the next day. He was so hungry that he felt uncomfortable. What did he see? They all wanted to stuff it into their stomachs, but in desperation, Tony Stark had no choice but to surrender. Then Lucifer asked his men to arrange a high-fiber meal for him, which would help clear the intestines. Anyway, looking at the look on Tony Stark's face, you knew that his constipation had been cured. Tony Stark, I am doing this for your own good. If you sweat more and suffer more now, you will bleed less in the future, and there will be no depression. Lucifer looked at Tony Stark and said meaningfully, after all, if you are not stronger, how can you deal with so many enemies in the future? You have to attract more villains to Lucifer to jump out. Then Lucifer also learned that Anton Vanke and Ivan Vanke did not return to Russia, but took a large sum of money to establish Vanke Industry, which mainly produces and manufactures various weapons. In short, it is to steal the business of Hammer Industries. Hammer Industries originally wanted to rectify Vanke Industry. After all, it was nothing to have an additional umbrella company. Umbrella Company and Stark Industries Group both took the high-end weapon route and could not affect the dealers and manufacturers of light weapons such as Hammer Industries. And Vanke Industry is obviously the kind of rice bowl that is being snatched away. Hammer Industries, which is supported by the America Consortium, wanted to attack Vanke Industry. As a result, Vanke Industry did not know why it got on the line of Umbrella Company and was protected by Umbrella Company. Then Vanko Industry relied on its excellent Russian quality to steal a lot of business from Hammer Industries. Vanke Industry did not produce existing light weapons of various brands. He made innovations. A large number of light weapons printed with Vanke Industries' whip logo flowed into the market, which brought a lot of influence and movement to the world. Finally, I've gotten smart and learned how to play the rich man's game, Lucifer said. Chapter 38. The father and son of Vanke Industrial have been doing well recently. After receiving a large sum of money from the umbrella company, the father and son discussed and felt that if they wanted to fight against a big tycoon like Tony Stark, they must not do it by force. Lucifer had told them that sneak attacks and assassinations were impossible. There was an organization called SHIELD secretly protecting Tony Stark's safety, unless they are not afraid of snipers or a glass of poisoned milk or wine. According to Lucifer, the mutants who once existed are not mutants. There are no mutants in the MCU Marvel Universe. Relying on his powerful abilities, he became a classic American comic egoist who did whatever he wanted. He even killed the SHIELD agent who came to persuade him. So the next day, he was sent away with a glass of milk that was enough to poison 20 adults. Now that the father and son of Vanke have money, they naturally don't want to fight with Tony Stark. Luxurious life can corrupt people's will. However, Lucifer taught them how the rich play. For example, now that Tony Stark is missing and there is no way to take revenge, what should they do? Then they can bring down Stark Industries and make it bankrupt. This can also be regarded as a kind of revenge. The father and son of Vanke thought this was a good idea. In fact, Stark Industries has shares in the military and SHIELD. They take a lot of dividends from Stark Industries every year, so they will not watch Stark Industries go bankrupt, which will also affect their interests. The umbrella company, which can currently replace Stark Industries, has no intention of going public. Even if many people wave money and assets to invest, Lucifer is too lazy to pay attention. The umbrella company will not be short of money because next, Lucifer will enter the field of medicine. This is the most profitable industry, and Lucifer, who has tyrant cells, has no problem making a panacea that can deal with all diseases. In fact, Lucifer has already launched a powerful cold medicine. One tablet can immediately solve the problem of colds, and it can be cured and restored to health in at most 10 minutes. After trying such a convenient and effective drug, will patients choose other drugs? In this regard, the umbrella company has always been a monopoly, opening its own hospitals and using its own drugs to treat patients. Private hospitals are as expensive as they can be, just to create authority and status symbols. If you can go to the hospital opened by the umbrella company, any illness is not a problem, and it is not the kind that anyone can enter. If it were someone else, even if there was such a good drug, they would definitely not live long or be destined to be swallowed up, so only Lucifer could be so willful to eat alone and not play with anyone. After Emil Bronski became the security director of the umbrella company, he felt that the umbrella company was right. 100 floors underground. Emil Bronski said to the elevator. Identity confirmed. Emil Bronski, security director, A-level authorization. So the elevator door opened, but Emil Bronski did not walk in, but walked to the wall next to him and stretched out his hand to push the wall open. Inside is a passage full of light. Both sides of the passage and the ceiling are made of glass. Inside the glass are tubes. No one knows why such a glass passage was built. At the end of the 100-meter-long glass passage is an alloy door weighing 100 meters. The switch is usually controlled by the Black Emperor, and the power can be cut off at a critical moment. Unless the opponent has brute force to shake this alloy door, he can only sigh. As soon as Emil Bronski reached the end, the door opened and then he walked in. Along the way are various glass troughs, which contain various horrifying monsters. For example, the huge, King Kong-like beast is defined as Behemoth. There are also snake bodies, pig heads, deer horns, cow ears, sheep whiskers, eagle claws, fish scales, dragons. There is even an angel with holy wings behind his back with his eyes closed. This is Emil Bronski's job, patrolling these monsters or biological weapons made by the Umbrella Company on a daily basis. These are all monsters Lucifer made by DIY using Tyrant cells. Out of bad taste, they are made into various mythical creatures. Originally, based on biology, such structures cannot survive, but who makes them based on Tyrant cells? This makes them not only able to survive, but also able to reproduce, so it is very serious if one of them runs away. Lucifer plans to try to let these monsters fight Godzilla if he travels to the world of Godzilla, the king of monsters. On the one hand, it can promote Godzilla's evolution, and on the other hand, he can watch movies. However, these are actually just works that Lucifer made to relieve his troubles. What he really wants to make with Tyrant cells is the elixir of immortality, for as death to stay young and immortal. But this is a problem. Tyrant cells seem to be immortal, but in fact they also have limits not as powerful as Doomsday. These are not what Lucifer wants. It seems that he can only hope for the infinite gems of the Marvel Universe or the Dragon Balls in the Dragon Ball world and other wonderful things. I don't have much need for the Space Gem, but the Power Gem plus Reality Gem may be able to create a true elixir of immortality. The Reality Stone modifies reality, but it consumes the vitality of the user. The powerful Curse Warrior is 4 times stronger than Thor, but can't live for long. The long life of the Dark Elves is converted into power. However, the Power Stone can make up for this defect of the Reality Stone. The Power Stone is set to charge other Infinity Stones and strengthen the abilities of other Infinity Stones. Of course, the Power Stone can also simply strengthen the user. Lucifer knows the location of the Power Stone and the Reality Stone, but he doesn't know if the things he makes after getting them will still be effective. However, no matter what, Lucifer still prefers to get the things first. Speaking of which, it seems that Tony Stark was kidnapped not long after the battle between Hulk and Abomination. Now that he was kidnapped by himself in advance, will Thor's hammer fall from the sky next? As for Odin, the God King who can pierce a galaxy with one shot in the comics, Lucifer is very curious about how much experience points he will get if he can kill him. I'm afraid it's enough for him to upgrade to level 10, right? Chapter 39, Wakanda. Wakanda. A very backward place. If it weren't for vibranium, this place wouldn't have developed beyond the rest of the world. Lucifer is here for vibranium. As for another specialty, heart-shaped grass, Lucifer has no idea, because heart-shaped grass is not a magical material for making super soldiers. It is just a hallucinogenic or poisonous substance that allows people to see the Black Panther god. If the royal family of Wakanda had not taken heart-shaped grass, the Black Panther god would have crushed you to death. Only the royal family of Wakanda could pass the test of the Black Panther god and be transformed into the super soldier Black Panther. He is not covetous of the vibranium technology developed by Wakanda based on vibranium, because Lucifer is confident that he can do better, and they actually use vibranium, a metal that is so versatile and almost omnipotent. To make it clothes and spears are such a waste. The current king of Wakanda, the current Black Panther T'Chaka, was surprised that outsiders would come to their backward place. He originally thought it was the Americans who sold the vibranium who were unwilling to give up. I want to come back to find vibranium. After all, in order to develop, Wakanda sold some vibranium very early in exchange for money to allow young people in the tribe to go to college in the United States and then come back to help develop their hometown. Therefore, their computers are binary, just like the outside world. Coupled with the special characteristics of vibranium, Wakanda's technological development is faster than the technological development of all mankind in the outside world. It already has its own spaceships and satellites, and it also beats all mankind around the world. Vibranium is the foundation of Wakanda, and T'Chaka is naturally unwilling to give it to him. After all, T'Challa is not the king now, and his mind is not that open. He just wants Wakanda to continue to exist. Therefore, T'Chaka declined and said that all the vibranium he had sold was already there. If he was worried, Wakanda would let him search. The Americans didn't believe it at the beginning. They dug everywhere, but still didn't find it. How could they know that the shallow vibranium mines had been collected by Wakanda? The deep ones were too deep and difficult to expose. The entire Wakanda is actually on a huge vibranium meteorite. This huge vibranium meteorite will not dry up even if it is dug for hundreds of years. It is simply a classic example of God's food. T'Chaka was startled when he saw the logo of the umbrella company. He knew very well what the umbrella company was. Although it was not a country, the umbrella company had much stronger military power than most countries, especially now that he seems to be coming with bad intentions. Helicopters named Ephemera armed helicopters hover in the sky. There is no loud noise produced by the propellers of ordinary helicopters. Because they are powered by magnetic levitation, the built-in new element fire source reactor allows them to have a combat radius and combat time of up to it takes a very long time, and because the engine is also a Lucifer innovation, even if it is placed on a fighter jet, it will surpass all current fighter jets. Therefore, the maximum flight speed of the Mayfly gunship can reach several times the speed of sound. The armor is also made of a special alloy mixed with a layer of Tyran cells. The metallized Tyran cells have unimaginable defense power and cannot even be hit by a rocket launcher. Penetrate the defenses of the Ephemera gunship. The weapon of the Mayfly gunship is even more powerful. It is a bolter from the Warhammer world, but the details are definitely different. It does not have as strong propulsion power as the bolter of the Warhammer world. The bolter of the Mayfly gunship it just explodes when it hits the target. However, the power is not small. The power of one explosive bomb is equivalent to the power of 2 kilograms of C4 explosives. From a purely lethality point of view, the shock wave and explosive energy generated by the explosion are more lethal than ordinary machine gun bullets, and the range wider. If there is no bunker within 50 meters, you will either die or be disabled. The vibration caused by the explosion will damage the internal organs and even kill you alive. This is why many people still die after the explosion, although they do not seem to be affected. Each Mayfly helicopter gunship has a bolt gun reserve of 10,000 rounds, which can fully achieve saturation fire coverage. Even if there are some awesome people like Captain America in the Marvel world who can dodge bullets, the shock wave of the explosion will not allow them to escape. There is also a group of heavily armed soldiers on the ground. These soldiers are all super soldiers. They were injected with Tyran cells called Compound No. 1 and easily gained physical strength equivalent to 4 times the human limit of Captain America. Their equipment is not ordinary guns and cannons, but super weapons that are coveted by all countries. Super soldiers plus power armor equals Space Marines. Seeing hundreds of soldiers wearing super weapons approaching, King T'Chaka of Wakanda didn't look very good. I wonder what brings you here. T'Chaka changed out of his clothes made of vibranium fiber worth hundreds of millions of dollars and put on a tattered indigenous robe, and said tremblingly at the same time, "Of course I'm here for the vibranium." Albert Wesker said with a smile, and the next moment the super soldiers pulled the trigger and the bolt guns in their hands fired bolts. T'Chaka didn't expect anyone from Umbrella to shoot directly. After all, it's Wesker, so it's not surprising that he would do something like this. However, Lucifer, who sent Wesker to deal with it, actually expected it, but he just wanted to test the extent of Wakanda's military strength. Although T'Chaka was old, he was the previous Black Panther after all. He fell to the side the moment the super soldier opened fire, and then the explosive bullet missed and hit the ground behind him. Boom! With a loud bang, the ground was blown up and the soil splashed. The explosive warhead fired by the ordinary explosive gun in the hands of the super soldier was as powerful as a high-explosive grenade. and only those wearing thick power armor could ignore the damage of the close-range explosion. T'Chaka ran away without saying a word. Just kidding, even if he wanted to fight back, he couldn't do anything to this group of fully armed Umbrella soldiers without the Black Panther suit. However, the explosion also alarmed the people of Wakanda. In fact, they had been watching here to prevent any unusual movements from the Umbrella Corporation. Unexpectedly, the Umbrella Corporation really had ill intentions and even took direct action. So a group of Wakanda warriors came out with vibranium spears and vibranium clothes. Boom, 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 boom. The super soldier turned his gun and aimed it at the Wakanda soldiers. However, after the explosive warhead, which should have been invincible, hit the Wakanda soldiers wearing vibranium clothes, the casualties were not as great as expected. Chapter 40 Titan. This is why vibranium is a universal metal. It has the ability to absorb kinetic energy and heat energy without transmitting it. It is the best shock-absorbing material and various materials in the world, and its own strength is also excellent. The lethality of the explosion comes from the shock wave, and the heat damage can only be regarded as the second wave. Therefore, with the protection of clothes made of vibranium fibers, the casualties of Wakanda's soldiers are not serious. Only the places not covered by vibranium are damaged, and even their counterattacks cause heavy casualties to super soldiers. The vibranium spear can easily pierce the power armor, and the laser emitted from the tip of the vibranium spear is the same, and there is no chance for the super soldier to dodge. This is the victory of materials science. Vibranium crushes the high-strength ally, and Wesker's expression changes slightly. Fighting an enemy whose material technology surpasses oneself is undoubtedly like the Stone Age versus the Steel Age. T'Chaka also changed into the Black Panther suit. His Black Panther suit was not as powerful as the Black Panther suit of his son T'Challa, but the coverage rate was also very high. Coupled with the embedded Black Panther claws, T'Chaka jumped into the super soldier and started to kill not really. Mainly because he relied on strong physical fitness to play fighting skills, but the physical function of the super soldier itself was much stronger than his, and there was also power armor to assist, and he almost beat the old Black Panther to vomit blood. If it weren't for the timely support of the Wakanda soldiers, the old Black Panther might have been captured alive. Even so, the old Black Panther caused a lot of trouble to the super soldiers, but at this time Wesker took action. He was so fast that he seemed to teleport on the battlefield. Wherever he passed, he snatched the vibranium spear from the hand of a Wakanda soldier, and then stabbed it into the body of the Wakanda soldier. When vibranium meets vibranium, it can only depend on thickness and pressure. Obviously, the pressure of the vibranium spear is much higher than the thickness of the vibranium clothes. However, the lethality of the laser is just average, which is why the Wakanda soldiers don't have to worry about accidental injuries. They are a combination of shields that are stronger than spears. Seeing this situation, Wesker understood why his father wanted to attack Wakanda to seize the vibranium. With such a weapon, the day when Umbrella Corporation will unify the Earth is just around the corner. Release the Titan, Wesker ordered. Then a huge monster fell from the sky. It was a giant over 15 meters tall, with iron-gray hair covering its entire body, shining in the sunlight. The huge 1-meter-long soles would cause the earth to tremble violently every time they landed on the ground. Every part of its body was so thick, especially the red eyes full of bloodthirsty light. The 5-meter-wide shoulders, the bulging deltoids on both sides were like bulging hills, and the muscles covered by the hair could only be described as terrifying. At the end of the thick arm, each of the 100-inch-long claws can rival the dragon spears of the human country's dragoons, and the low gasps seem to make the air whimper. Titan Beast Behemoth. The biological weapon cultivated by Tyran cells is combined with the description of Behemoth in the Bible, but the appearance of this monster still makes the people of Wakanda stunned. Black Panther God, what kind of monster is this? There are such huge monsters in the world. The soldiers of Wakanda were all panicked, and then the behemoth began to attack according to Wesker's order. The huge claws just waved, and dozens of Wakanda soldiers were taken to the air. Vibranium ensured that they were not injured, but this feeling would definitely not be wonderful. What's more, the thickness of the vibranium on their bodies is not enough, and the defense is limited. It's okay at ordinary times, but now facing the titan-like behemoth, it is obviously not enough. Most people have giant phobia, and the people of Wakanda are no exception. What's more, this thing is a monster. Just the appearance of the behemoth and the beginning of the attack, their morale collapsed. However, at this time, a spaceship inside Wakanda flew up and fired a laser with a diameter of 1 meter at the behemoth. Boom! After the laser hit the behemoth, it exploded countless pieces of flesh and blood. Even though the density of this behemoth was very high due to the Tyran cells, it also adapted to gravity and other factors that restrict the activities of large-sized organisms, so missiles and the like definitely could not break through the defense. It is unknown to what extent the weapons of Wakanda have reached that they can actually injure the behemoth with one blow. The injured behemoth roared immediately, and the Tyran cells quickly healed the wound, and then it slapped the spaceship. The huge size did not affect its movement speed and attack speed at all, but the flight speed of the spaceship was not slow, and it successfully avoided the attack of the behemoth. Seeing this, energy particles gathered in the mouth of the behemoth. Titans without energy attack means can only be regarded as small fish. Only Godzilla and King Ghidorah are the kings of monsters. In fact, the handsome guy can't be regarded as the king of monsters at all because he can't attack with energy. The pilots on the spacecraft were stunned. This monster can actually attack with energy? Where does it get such a huge amount of energy intake? Is it grown by eating nuclear fuel? Then the behemoth spit out a light cannon at the spacecraft. The deep blue energy rainbow was avoided by the spacecraft, but the energy level shocked the spacecraft and the people who were monitoring the situation in Wakanda. It was equivalent to the energy intensity of a nuclear explosion, and the energy output was even higher than that of a nuclear explosion. After spraying energy output for a full minute, the behemoth stopped its energy attack. Then Wakanda did not dare to continue to delay with the behemoth. What if the monster's next target was Wakanda? Although they were confident in Wakanda's vibranium energy shield technology, it was not good to be hit by a single shot. So the spacecraft's laser weapon was aimed at the head of the behemoth. The next moment, the laser weapon opened fire, and the behemoth's head was instantly blown into pieces and it fell down. That's the end of a Titan, Lucifer said, feeling that Wakanda had become the victory team, but the victory team had only a few victories. The behemoth's body degraded quickly, and Wesker looked ugly. If he failed in his first mission, how would Fad view his ability? Do you think he is not good enough? Wakanda looked at the rapidly degrading monster corpse and confirmed that it was not the Umbrella Corporation that found some monster and then controlled it. This method is more like the biological weapons created by the Umbrella Corporation after death. Wakanda also knew about the Umbrella Corporation's secret biological weapons trading. Alright, legends, that's it for today. If you're ready for the next chapter, smash that like button and flood the comments right now. Remember, we've got 3 days to prove this story needs to continue. Subscribe so you don't miss the drop, and I'll meet you in the next audiobook.